Before Kang even touches Ares, the game is already selling people a dream bigger than rent, debt, and common sense. Soldiers brace for a monster raid, but the creature tears through their formation before the knights can even finish shouting orders. In the middle of that chaos, an elf stares at the person who saved him and can barely get the words out. The rescuer apologizes for treating him harshly, so the elf closes his eyes and promises he will never forget the debt. Then the elf tries to say one more thing and suddenly loses all that battlefield courage. He admits that if it is this person, he is fine with it too, and the whole deadly raid swerves straight into romance. The court is already weighing loyalty and noble power when another announcement interrupts them. The white-haired elder realizes no more nobles should be coming, but Baronet Sir Hyunsu and Sir Luke arrive anyway, turning the meeting into a new political problem. When they exchange rings, the game stamps the achievement for everyone to see. An outsider has become the first player to marry an elf, and Ares treats that like a world-changing win. That wild achievement leads straight into what Ares really is, a virtual reality game, where the god behind it judges users directly. A suited presenter explains that big achievements can grant powers no normal player could buy. For players chasing glory, that promise is simple. Earn the god's revelation, become a legendary hero, build a faction, or even reign as king if the game bends your way. The presenter says anything possible in reality can be achieved inside Ares, and the game's impact explodes from there. For Kang, buried under hospital bills, that kind of prize is not fantasy money, it is a lifeline. At Ares Hunting Training Center, Instructor Relson oversees a launch event that still no one has cleared. Break the wooden doll in 10 strikes. The reward is brutal bait, a VVIP capsule worth 50 million won, and 5 extra points to every stat. Then the crowd panics because Maridin, called the strongest primate, arrives for the challenge. He towers over the armed staff, and the wooden doll suddenly looks like a toy left in the wrong room. The spectators whisper that Maridin does not even look human anymore. One remembers hearing he once beat a bear to death barehanded, so now everyone wants to know how that tiny wooden doll is supposed to survive him. Maridin muscles the wrapped wooden doll into his grip and swings for the prize like the 10-strike rule is a formality. The doll takes the hit, the system shuts him down, and the challenge spits out a cold failure notice. Behind the event, a staff member warns that Ares keeps pushing recruitment and profit harder than safety. The team leader asks how one person is supposed to handle that, but the superior dumps the mess right back on the team leader. Another challenger steps in anyway. Weapon raised, still chasing the reward everyone else keeps failing. A smug staffer softens the loss before it happens and says he had his own what-if phase once. He picks a bad second to talk down. The noise spikes across the center, and the staffer stops smiling. Something hits hard enough to shake the whole trial, and Ares blasts out a world message congratulating the first person to do it. Inside the monitoring room, 2 staffers stare at the result and can barely get the words out. One asks who that player is, while another reports that the numbers are strange. The masked observer reads the item grade and stops cold at one word: epic? He watches the calm player with the black sword and mutters that he has no idea what kind of guy just appeared. Then the sound changes. Metal rings through the impact, and the clean strike pulls Kang away from the trial and straight into the forge fire he never escaped in his head. Inside that memory, Kang stands in the workshop and sees his father through the heat. His voice cracks as he calls for him because this is the fire that burned his hands, broke his old life, and left the hospital bills waiting outside the game. Kang grabs the hammer anyway and strikes the burning forge with his whole body. The backlash hits him hard, but our boy steadies himself and looks up like the fire has finally answered. The heat turns into a fight, and Kang braces instead of running. Each impact drives him back, but the kid keeps his stance because the only way out is through the flames. The fire swallows him again, and Kang thinks only one thing as it burns too hot to breathe. He forces his way forward and screams for his father to get out of the flames. Kang keeps yelling for his father to hurry because the heat is closing in. They plunge through the flames together, and Kang only stops once the escape drops him into a blue safe space, exhausted but out of the inferno. Back in the present, inside the safe chamber, Kang comes to and checks the room around him. The fire is gone, but his body still carries the panic of dragging his father out. Years later in the real world, Kim Ji-hoon, Kang's acquaintance with a very expensive plan, corners him like he has no patience left. Kim Ji-hoon snaps that Kang looks ready to die, then asks if he seriously does not know Ares. Kim Ji-hoon lays it out fast. Ares is the game everyone is chasing, but no one has cleared it yet, not even the famous players who went in first. Kang only smirks, calculating instead of answering. Then Kim Ji-hoon reveals the price of entry. A standard Ares capsule costs 10 million won, and that number is enough to shock Kang into taking the offer seriously. Kim Ji-hoon drops the real gamble. He has prepared a standard Ares capsule worth 10 million won. Kang jolts at the price, but Kim Ji-hoon insists the rewards can pay back far more if Kang survives the game. Kim Ji-hoon refuses to call it madness. He keeps waving it off as an investment, then grins because he has found the one class Kang might still understand with ruined hands. Kim Ji-hoon points straight at the Blacksmith class and asks Kang what he thinks of it. Kang stares back, still unsure why this guy is betting 10 million won on him. The memory twists back to the fire, and Kang grips the dark shape in his hand as the masked figure confronts the young man before him. The masked figure claims he never even showed his real power, and the young man buckles under the attack. The young man clutches his chest and tries to endure it, but his body gives out. The next strike drops him into the flames. Inside the burning forge, Kang sees his father down and screams for him. He pushes through the heat, reaches the injured man, and pulls him into his arms. Back in the hospital after the fire, Kang sits beside his father's bed while the treatment bills keep coming. His father survives, but every day in that room costs money Kang does not have. So Kang takes whatever work he can get, even when a supervisor sends him to the back without a second thought. The kid swings a hammer on a construction site, remembering the 10 years he spent following his father's footsteps at the forge. Each strike drags him back to metal, heat, and the craft he lost. Then the work flashes into a weapon taking shape, but the progress still reads 0%, and Kang is left facing the same impossible start. After work, Kang refuses Kim Ji-hoon's help and pulls off his helmet. Kim Ji-hoon spent 10 million won on an Eras capsule for him, but Kang tells him to return it because he will handle his own bills. Kang storms out before the argument can soften. Kim Ji-hoon snaps after him, calling him an idiot, and the word lands because Kang is walking away from the only expensive chance anyone has put in his hands. Inside, Kim Ji-hoon corners him with a part Kang keeps dodging. If Kang keeps wrecking his body for construction pay, his father's hospital bed will not be the only one swallowing money. Kang finally breaks and throws the 10 million won back in Kim Ji-hoon's face as a debt, not charity. He promises to take responsibility for that money and demands Kim Ji-hoon listen, because this guy would rather owe a friend than be carried by one. The heat in Kang's memory surges again, and his hands start shaking before he can stop them. He forces his eyes down to those hands and thinks he has to focus on what he can still do right now. Kang's answer is simple now. He has to earn money for his father's treatment fast, so he follows the one skill the fire could not erase from him and steps back toward the forge. At the forge, Kang adjusts his cap and studies the workbench like it might bite first. Metal waits in front of him, and Kim Ji-hoon presses the real offer. Kang can earn through blacksmithing and Ares. The old fire still claws at Kang, the kind of heat that once drained the sweat from his whole body, so he suits up anyway, sealing himself inside the capsule gear before fear can make the choice for him. Inside Ares now, Kang wakes in a digital space as the system asks him to set a nickname. The scan catches the scar on his hand, finishes its analysis, and tests his body with a burst of power before asking if he wants to keep this appearance. Kang's face tightens, but he clenches his fist and chooses to move forward. As the glowing effects gather around him, the hesitation ends. He commits to this new start with the body he has now. Inside the forge workshop in Barden territory, the Eldersmith curses the instructors and forces out one last technique. It barely holds, so he grits his teeth and begs it to work before Kang steps in on the mess he was not supposed to see. The Elder spots Kang and snaps at the outsider in his forge. Kang does not run. This guy looks at the hammer instead and thinks his first plan was simple: get on the Elder's good side and borrow the forge. But Kang sees a better opening, so he takes the Elder's condition head on. If Kang proves his smithing, the Elder has to accept the return item condition, and the old man laughs because Kang just walked into a test with his chin up. So Kang takes the hammer and starts forging for real. 3 years away from a proper forge makes his hand hesitate, and he thinks he talked too big for a man who might not still have the touch. Then the first clean strike lands, and the workshop drags him straight back to the fire that ruined his life. Kang hears himself scream for his father, then for Kim Ji-hoon, while the heat crawls over the same fear he came here to beat. Kang steadies himself and keeps hammering. The forgotten rhythm comes back one strike at a time, and he thinks the clang of steel, the heat on his skin, all of it feels like coming home. The Elder watches Kang's form and admits the kid has clearly handled a hammer before, but he still expects limits because he only allowed this hoping Kang might be useful, not impossible. Kang pushes past that guess. The Elder sees the blade strengthen while the impurities vanish, and he blurts out in shock because the outsider is doing work that should not happen at this level. Kang keeps working the metal even after the Elder says the blade's grade cannot go any higher. That matters because Kang is testing the exact limit the blacksmith believes is fixed. By the time the forge grows quiet, the Elder is forced to compare Kang to himself. Later, worn out on a bench, he grumbles that the outsider kept him up late, while Kang is still at the anvil and still not stopping. The old craftsman watches Kang keep hammering long after a normal player would have quit. Kang is exhausted, but the old rhythm has him now, so he drives the metal harder instead of backing off. The old craftsman realizes Kang has been doing this all night and stares at him like the anvil just started talking back. Then Kang forces one more breakthrough, and the blade jumps past the grade the old craftsman thought was possible. Kang still refuses to stop, so the old craftsman panics a little and figures this guy is aiming even higher. When Kang finally raises his hand and asks what to do next, the old craftsman grabs a hammer and joins in because now even he wants to see the result. When the hammering finally ends, both of them inspect the blade like it might bite. The old craftsman declares it an A-grade blade and says it can become a rare grade sword, something he has never even seen in the starter village. Kang is already thinking about the unfinished hilt and the edge, but the old craftsman just laughs because he has never met an outsider like him. He admits he has loved smithing since he was a kid, then pushes the test further and offers Kang a new material for another forging attempt. Kang takes the strange material and freezes when he understands what it is. The old craftsman holds it out anyway, and Kang asks why he would give something that valuable to an outsider. The old craftsman wants Kang to forge a sword with mithril, the legendary metal Kang has only read about. Kang thinks this is a gamble because he has never worked with it before, but his hands are already itching to try. Then Kang catches himself before the excitement runs away with him. He mutters that he will forget it and refuses to use the mithril, leaving the old craftsman's biggest offer sitting between them. Back at the forge, Kang gives in to the mithril test and hammers until the metal finally answers him. The sword comes out as daylight, an epic weapon with power way past a beginner's hands, and the system treats it like work from a master craftsman. Kang checks the finished blade and finally lets himself breathe. Even at level 1 with no class, his blacksmithing has pumped his stats so hard that this guy is walking around with a craftsman's body and a ridiculous sword. Inside the Ares operations room, the staff stop working when daylight hits the system logs. A supervisor snaps at a gawking worker to do his job before he gets demoted, but even he wants to know how Kang made that thing. The assistant manager digs up Kang's real-world profile, and the staff realize he is not some famous pro. He is a 23-year-old living in a studio apartment, and one worker gets so excited he begs for Kang's name before anyone outside Ares hears about him. That attention follows Kang straight into the hunting training center, where real monsters start showing up for new users. Instructor Relson, the trial instructor, sees Kang's level and warns him a level 1 newcomer has no chance, so he orders him to hunt rabbits first. Kang wonders why Instructor Relson cannot see the stats his forging built up, so he decides not to waste time proving himself the slow way. When the instructor asks about his weapon, Kang raises daylight and makes it clear he wants to fight with his own sword. Up in the system view, Ares still labels Kang as classless and level 1, and the staff hesitate over whether to leave everything to the world's god. On the monitor, they see Kang step forward with daylight, while one staffer admits he probably has no idea what is waiting for him. Lord Vance, the territory lord watching this trial, snaps when Kang chooses his own blade instead of the normal path. He calls it a worthless trade and mocks Kang as a pitiful fool, while the arena loads monsters on 3 sides around him. Instructor Relson's favor drops at once, and Kang recognizes that look from real life. People have called blacksmithing a useless dream before, but in Ares, holding the sword he made himself, Kang remembers what it feels like to matter through his craft. Instructor Relson measures Kang's request against every swordsman who ever crossed this training ground. Kang is asking for a harder test than their best students took, and Lord Vance hears that with one sharp grunt before he locks onto him. Relson has trained too many students to miss real nerve when it stands in front of him, so Kang's challenge gets under his skin. The system marks him as provoked, and Relson finally allows the trial attempt. Relson warns him that the highest record here is only the stage 3 trial. Then the training ground releases a swift goblin at level 6. When Relson asks if he is sure, Kang checks one thing first. Is stage 3 really the end? Kang answers Relson with one clean line: "I'll take them all." Relson snaps at the kid for treating his training like a warm-up, but Kang steps in anyway, with daylight in his hand and his future riding on the weapon he made. The swift goblin rushes him with the speed that wrecks beginners, and Relson knows almost nobody in the whole world has cleared stage 3. Kang does not back off, so the trial keeps pushing harder until the training ground throws him into the next wall. A mad knight joins the trial and tries to crush Kang head-on. Kang catches the attack with daylight, studies the knight's sword instead of the knight, and sees the flaw any blacksmith would notice. That poor sword picked the wrong profession to insult. Kang aims for the weak point and breaks the mad knight's weapon apart, but before the knight can recover, our boy drives daylight upward, lands a clean hit, and cracks the armor open. Relson reads the exchange and realizes the swift goblin landed a critical hit instantly, the exact reason beginners fear it. Then he freezes because a level 1 should not survive that. And Kang quietly checks his own answer. All that weapon forging raised his strength to 35 and vitality to 33. Still inside the hunting training center, Kang has one clear path back to his father's hospital bills. Clear the trial, earn better rewards, and make blacksmithing and Ares pay. Another swift goblin rushes him. Then a mad goblin drops in with madness thorns, trying to end the run before the kid can breathe. Kang takes the hit and answers through the opening instead of backing off. He drives the counter through the mad goblin and cuts the encounter shut with one cold thought: it ends here. Kang checks the crossblade he forged, then steadies daylight in his hand. Our boy trusts the weapon because he made every part of it, and the weapon answers with its epic grade swift blade skill, boosting his attack speed for 1 second. That 1 second is all Kang needs. He tears through the remaining enemies before the trial can reset its footing, and the last target crashes down in front of him. Relson watches the record fall apart and blurts, "This brat did what no one else could." Then the trial throws up the Mad Lord path, and Lord Vance waits beyond it with a simple verdict: nothing more. The fight shifts from survival to recognition, because Kang's gear is no longer being treated like beginner junk. Relson looks at Kang's armor, his sword, and the run he just cleared, then admits he is seeing a true blacksmith in front of him. Even the watching knight ranks Kang's work above the Mad Knight gear, and Relson's doubt turns into interest fast. His earlier attitude did not survive contact with the receipt, but Relson warns Kang that a class change quest has no easy retreat. Lord Vance commands hundreds of Mad Knights, so taking this offer pulls Kang toward a Lord level problem, not a training room prize. Relson says he does not make the offer lightly. Kang refuses to be mistaken for a knight and plants his answer cleanly: he is a blacksmith, not a sword fighter chasing glory. Outside the trial path now, Kang feels the next road open in front of him. Facing the Grand Tower ahead, this guy treats the quest like a second start and thinks his life as a blacksmith begins again. A system window locks in the hidden quest: meet Lord Vance. Relson gives Kang a recommendation letter for the Lord's castle in Barden territory, then adds armor once worn by a mad lord as the trial reward. Elsewhere, two operators sit over a control panel as a sparking object reacts to Kang's run. One of them notices the spark and says yes, and the trial's result is no longer staying inside the training center. The training ground finally clears, and Ares pushes Kang into Barden territory with the main quest open. The tutorial is over, so the kid gets dragged out of the safe starter path and logged out before he can even celebrate. Back in the real world, Kang checks his phone and the account balance sits at 0. Kim Ji-hoon, the Ares acquaintance who keeps feeding him game advice, calls right as Kang folds into the corner under the hospital dead again. Kang asks Kim Ji-hoon about the auction house, and Ji-hoon lays it out clean. Players buy the gear and items they need there with gold, so Kang can turn his blacksmithing into money if he can keep making things people want. That plan still runs through Kang's own body, so he starts managing stamina like part of the job. He eats recovery food, trains outside, and keeps thinking about the hospital bed waiting for him after every login. At his father's side, Kang asks him to hold on a little longer. He clenches his fist and promises he will make sure his father wakes up again. So the next forge is not for pride, it is for the bill due next. Back in Eras, Kang enters Barden territory and heads straight for the auction house. The system asks for a shop name, and this guy types one word, Hyun. Kang forges his first auction item and registers the shop tool under Hyun's blacksmith shop. Once the auction board unlocks for use anywhere, he waits for news and starts learning the village systems instead of hovering over the sale like a nervous merchant. While Kang studies Barden's systems, the board starts talking about a level 1 item made by a crafter with no class name attached. Users crowd the listing, armored players stop to check it, and the bid on Hyun's first sword keeps climbing. Inside the Golden Shield Guild, the Blacksmith Guild in Ares, a member rushes the Vice Guild Master over to the listing. He is shocked that a level 1 rare sword has clean stats, strong durability, and enough demand to turn one beginner weapon into guild business. The Vice Guild Master reads the crafting math and realizes Kang likely used same grade materials to raise the success chance while cutting costs. With skill like that at level 1, he tells the guild to go for it. And Hyun's first sword becomes the item everyone wants before Kang even comes back to check the price. The Golden Shield Vice Guild Master stops hesitating and tells his people to buy Kang's sword. The bid closes before Kang even checks the auction again. Kang opens the sale window and freezes. His first sword is already gone, and the price hits 1 million won. One beginner sword just punched a hospital bill in the face. Then Kang sees who bought it. Golden Shield Guild, the Blacksmith Guild in Ares with that massive paid subscription. Kim Ji-hoon's warning comes back to him because followers are harder to raise than levels, and Golden Shield has users watching every move. Two hooded observers close in around Kang, flooding him with golden light and blue magic. He is no longer alone. Powerful strangers are watching him directly now. At Lord's castle in Barden territory, that sudden attention carries Kang straight into a noble request. Lord Vance orders a burned bow restored, and Kang turns toward it, confused by how badly damaged it is. Kang studies the ruined bow and blurts out that restoring it here sounds impossible. Lord Vance notices the newcomer near his heirloom and demands to know who he is. The guard explains Kang arrived with Instructor Relson's recommendations, so Lord Vance asks for his class and level. The system sends the request, and Kang has no clean way to hide the ugly part. Lord Vance sees level 1, and his anger spikes at once. The Lord's personal blacksmith snaps even harder, because he spent 4 weeks making an epic level 80 recurve bow, and this level 1 blacksmith is now standing in front of his work. But Kang hears the bow's real name and stops pushing back. It is a gakgung, a small Horian composite bow built for brutal draw strength, and our boy recognizes the shape before anyone else in the room does. Lord Vance says the gakgung came from a mysterious foreigner, and Kang's focus sharpens. Lord Vance warns him to speak only words he can stand by, then faces him as the request turns serious. Inside Lord Vance's castle, Kang asks to confirm one thing before he touches the burned gakgung. He studies the old curve and says water buffalo horn is precious even back in his own world, so Lord Vance waits to hear what this level 1 blacksmith actually knows. Lord Vance sits with the memory of the bow heavy on him. In the past, a younger man offered it to his father as the finest bow in Barden territory, and that memory still burns under the damage. Ayers accepts Kang's answer on the spot and opens a linked quest. Restore Lord Vance's gakgung, grade A for 500 gold. Kang grips the broken piece and quietly works through the shape in his head until he understands what has to be rebuilt. Per watches Kang change from nervous visitor to locked-in craftsman, and it rattles him hard. He demands to know what is wrong with this guy, then hears the name Kang and realizes the level 1 blacksmith is not backing down. At the restoration workshop, Kang leans on the VIP capsule's 99.98% sync rate to feel every fine detail of the damaged bow. The capsule gives him the touch he needs, so our boy starts pulling the old materials back into shape by hand. The work turns into long, dirty craft instead of one clean miracle. Kang cuts, braces, heats, and rebuilds the bow piece by piece until the first full day leaves him wiped out. Kang admits the full day of work is rough, but Lord Vance's happiness gives him strength. Even so, he pauses with the crafted piece in his hands, because his changed expression shows the restoration still has something troubling left to face. Kang keeps Lord Vance close and has him help with a frame instead of standing aside. Restoring memories takes time and effort, so this guy treats the frame like something living people are still holding onto. After days of work, Kang reaches the final day and steadies himself over the finished craft. The sharpshooter sharpshooter's Gagung is complete. The finished sharpshooter's Gagung comes back as an epic weapon, with 253 attack and boosts to agility and accuracy. Lord Vance looks up to his father's statue and asks if he is watching, because another mysterious foreigner has returned the bow to his hands. Lord Vance tests the restored bow himself, wanting to know if it feels like the memory he lost. One shot is all it takes, and the old lord breaks into a full laugh when the bow answers him cleanly. The quest clears past a perfect result, and Kang's affinity with Lord Vance hits max. Then the reward drops 2 million won into Kang's lap, and our boy nearly fist pumps through the floor. Hospital bills just got a very bad day. But Lord Vance is not done paying him back. He steps in with his sword and tells Kang he is a born blacksmith, but he also saw Kang's feel for every weapon he touches. So Lord Vance hands Kang a fragment of the Prime Kingdom swordsmanship that once held back endless monsters. Kang accepts it as a craftsman first, because understanding weapons is what lets him build them better. The training shifts back into work, so Kang forges his own Gagung while restoring what he learned from Lord Vance. Then he drills with it until the bow stops feeling borrowed and starts moving with his own hands. Outside the ornate building, Kang stands fully equipped and tells Lord Vance he is ready. Lord Vance's armor covers his low level with damage reflection, so the kid can survive hits that should have ended him outright. Kang's new bow comes up as Hyun's second bow, a rare weapon with full durability, 94 attack, and no level restriction. The watching archer stares at the item card, stunned that a level 1 blacksmith used low-grade materials and still made something this clean. Aras lays the rule out in plain terms. If the game moves by a player's actions, Kang is already pushing it. One watcher compares him to the smith, while another smiles at the gap between cheap materials and ridiculous results. Kang grips the ornate book, locks in his next step, and moves out. At the blacksmith's tower now, Kang crosses the stone plaza with Lord Vance's armor on and Hyun's second bow in hand. The tower rises over the hillside, but once the kid reaches the sealed chamber, the real question hits him. How does he even get inside? The system answers by naming the place as the Tower of the Swordsmith, and pulls Kang into a magical forge. It offers him training tools for the trial, so this guy studies the condition. Make a sword that can cut through the stone seal. Kang brings that sword to the sealed door and cuts straight through it. Deng, the tower master who runs the Swordsmith Forge trials, watches with a drink in hand and writes him off as another gold chaser before the cut finishes. Kang gets the blacksmith notice and wonders if the trial actually worked. Deng is still declaring that no one will ever slice the sealing stone, right as Kang's sword completes the cut. His rejection matters because the supposedly impossible seal has just been beaten. The clear trial opens up the forge's real reward, endless ores and shorter production time. Kang stares at the setup, calls it insane, and decides this is exactly where he wants to hammer without holding back. But the tower answers before Kang can enjoy it. A violent force throws him back, pain rips through him, and he gasps out what everyone is suddenly feeling. The whole place is shaking. Outside and inside the tower, the tremor keeps building. The tower itself starts trembling, Kang braces against the surge, and golden force erupts above him as a glowing weapon material drops into the forge. The falling material smashes into the tower's chains, and the forge wakes up around Kang. Runes lock into place, a bandaged figure steps into the light, and the system announces that the god of blacksmiths has appeared. Kang tries to speak carefully, then follows the figure deeper into the chamber. A magic circle waits ahead, so Kang offers his hammer like the trial is asking for it. But the moment the figure grips it, the whole test turns on him. The system slams Kang with an SS rank quest and says there is a true trial he still has to overcome. Kang lands alone on a ruined platform, sees attacks coming for him, and blurts out that this is seriously a retest. Kang survives the first rush by forcing his way through instead of panicking. Then the real order drops. This retest is not a duel, it is an SS rank mission to defeat an invading orc army. Inside the new war zone, Kang stands in a burning fortress, with the quest still hanging over him. The system orders him to subjugate the invading orcs, and our boy stares at the word reinforcements before realizing it means him. The orcs are already tearing into the fortress, and the soldiers are fighting with damaged gear. When they spot Kang's hammer, he explains he got it during his class advancement test, and was sent here for an additional trial. The field captain hears that and snaps, because he expected real support and got a rookie to babysit. He orders Kang to stay in the watchtower until the unit returns, leaving the kid behind, while the orc army keeps pushing in. Kang disobeys the watchtower order, and charges straight into the orc invasion, hammer first. The officer sees the supposed rookie run into the worst part of the battle, and panics. But Kang finally gets it. The additional trial is the retest itself. The orcs press the soldiers hard, so the unit turns to Kang for answers, instead of leaving him behind. One soldier begs Kang to take care of them, and our boy answers by stepping in front and taking the lead. So much for the watchtower. The orc force hits harder than anything Kang expected, and even his shield nearly buckles under the pressure. For 1 second, he gets shoved back, but he steadies himself and decides he is not losing here. Kang holds his ground through the next rush, trusting the training he spent a month grinding out. The system starts rewarding him in the middle of the fight, and this guy realizes that month was not wasted at all. The fight spills past the watchtower, and Kang spots Ben about to get caught by the orcs. He cuts off his own attack, swaps to the Horian bow, and aims for the danger closing in on Ben. Ben freezes as the huge orc barrels toward him, and Kang has no time to reach him on foot. The kid fires from the air, forcing the orc away before it can crush Ben. Kang follows through with the Horian bow and drives the arrow into the orc hard enough to stop its charge. The system flashes a level up, and Kang lands with another win in a war he was never supposed to fight. The soldiers stare at Kang with the bow still in his hand, trying to process what just happened. One of them blurts that he sent a huge orc flying with a single arrow, while Ben snaps back to himself when the captain orders him to focus. The orcs spot Kang as the real problem, so they break formation and rush straight for him. Kang steadies the Horian bow, but Ben's panic hits him first, and Kang thinks this whole mess has dragged everyone around him into danger. A new episode begins as two armored knights clash above the water, marking the fight as something the soldiers have never seen before. Through the dust and heat, a horned armored warrior steps in, adding a new threat to the battlefield. The soldiers recognize the warrior at once. The captain calls him the enemy they could never beat, and the line goes quiet for half a second before the bad news lands. Orcs close in from every side, and the captain realizes they chased the fight too far in. The soldiers say they are ready anyway, while the orcs answer with their own promise to never retreat. The order turns into a full charge, and discipline falls apart fast. Kang takes the blast with the others, then clocks the real problem. The whole unit is rushing in angry instead of fighting smart. Kang fires into the armored warrior, but the arrows barely bite. Our boy remembers the Horian bow's penetration and accuracy options, so he keeps shooting for the weak points instead of wasting shots. Lord Van sees the soldiers still standing and snarls over whether retreat is the only choice left. The commander refuses to fall back, so the armored warrior takes the front again and forces Kang into a desperate block. Aris suddenly brands Kang with a cheating accusation and blasts him upward. Kang jerks in shock, then calls for Captain Kang as the battlefield drops away from him. Kang stands in a burning city with his red glowing weapon ready, so this is not a safe landing spot. The fight has reached him again, and he has to defend himself immediately. Back on the burning battlefield, Kang is still only trying to turn blacksmithing into hospital money, but Ares has dragged him into Lord Vance's war instead. The armored orc commander hammers the front line so hard even the shield wall starts cracking, and Kang braces through the shock. From the high ground, Kang sees the army breaking and warns that they are about to get wiped out. The soldiers answer with a last defense, but the commander's next charge drives straight into them. Kang orders everyone to stop attacking and focus only on defense. The captain backs him, promises to follow soon, and sends the soldiers into the forest under Kang's command. As the retreat starts, the soldiers know the delay only buys them a few minutes. Kang takes that tiny gap and reaches for the one thing the enemy keeps ignoring: arrows. The armored commander trusts his plating too much, so Kang studies the weak points instead of wasting a shot. Then he pulls out Kang's hammer of replication, the epic tool that can duplicate consumables, and Kang thinks it's possible. Kang turns that tool into a battlefield answer and launches the copied arrows at the armored orc commander. The first hit lands, but the commander powers through and smashes the attack apart before it can finish him. The front line buckles again, so the warrior gripping his sword fights just to stay standing. He only asks for 5 minutes, and the armored commander rejects even that, roaring that he will not disobey his order. Kang forces the commander into one brutal exchange to buy the retreat time. The impact throws him into the air, but he twists back down and drives another strike toward the commander before the enemy can chase the soldiers. The armored commander catches the attack and avoids the killing angle, but then the ground below him starts to shift. Kang freezes at the sudden change, and a massive impact slams down where the fight is supposed to be under control. A massive curved wall of energy glows across the battlefield, and Kang answers by switching weapons instead of just bracing. The dark bow pulses in his hands as he knocks a luminous arrow, preparing a counter before the next impact can decide the fight. Kang catches his footing before the commander can run down the retreating soldiers. The soldiers shout for Kang as the commander and the armored troops keep advancing, so our boy loads more arrows instead of backing up. Ars finally names Kang's weapon out loud, a rare Pyonjun called Age Assault, with attack power 95, extra piercing power, and higher arrow speed. This is not a warrior's secret technique, it is a blacksmith's homework coming back with teeth. Kang builds the shot from the parts he prepared, a bamboo tonga, Aegisal arrows copied with Kang's hammer, and the Gakyum bow pulling the whole set together. Once the set effect activates, the next arrow drives straight into the commander's defense. Quick catch up, Kang is holding the line with his crafted bow and copied arrows, fighting to buy the soldiers time to retreat. The armored commander refuses to let a blacksmith hold the line and roars for his men to fight back. Kang answers by firing the Pyonjun again, and its piercing force hits with the weight of a matchlock rifle. The commander tries to endure the barrage, but Kang keeps feeding arrows into the same break in his defense. Each hit pins the enemy in place longer, and the soldiers get the time they begged for. Ars rewards Kang in the middle of the fight, leveling him up again and again. Then the title Core Slayer lands on him, raising his attack power against orcs by 15%, and this guy can barely hold back a stunned laugh. The commander screams as the final hits drive him back, and the orc warriors lose their nerve. They flee from Kang in terror, leaving the battlefield cracked open behind them. But the armored commander is still falling toward Kang through the rain, pulling one last charge into his body. He crashes down with everything he has left, and Kang's line is about to take the hit head on. The armored orc commander refuses to let Kang's line survive the charge, so he drags up the last of his strength and comes down on them again. The soldiers are already screaming for defense, but the commander is aiming for the one blacksmith, holding their whole front together. Kang gets blasted back, but this guy does not stay down. He forces himself back into the fight, meets the commander's last push head on, and breaks the charge before it reaches the soldiers. When the dust clears, armored bodies are on the ground. ground, and Kang is still standing. Ares posts the final contribution at 92%, then clears the quest with a phenomenal record. That is not a normal support class. The soldiers call for Kang from across the ruined field, and the fear finally cracks into celebration. The orcs are beaten, the long fight is over, and the men who begged for 5 minutes now get to breathe. One officer steps up and admits this victory is the wish they have carried their whole lives, the subjugation of the orcs. He thanks Kang for making it happen, and the soldiers stand behind him like they still cannot believe they lived to see it. Kang thanks them back, but his mind is already moving to the forge. With the war quest finished, the young master decides it is time to return to the blacksmith's tower. Back at the central tower, inside the hall of blacksmiths, Deng gathers the tower lords, because Kang's test has gone far beyond a normal class change. Deng says knights have claimed all honor for too long, and now a true blacksmith's soul must be judged by the sword itself. The sword accepts the trial and releases its power across the hall, but not everyone is ready to accept Kang. Coulson, Tower Lord of Bow Blacksmiths, challenges the result and asks whether this choice is just some trick from the Chosen One. Coulson pushes back, so Deng cuts straight to the letter he already sent him. Deng says the trial came from the prophecy itself. The successor to the god of blacksmiths will be stronger than anyone, and the sword will give the final answer. Inside the hall of blacksmiths, Kang arrives with Coulson waiting for him. The judging sword rises in the center of the hall, and every Tower Lord watches as Kang reaches for it. The moment Kang touches the sword, the hall erupts around him. Coulson studies him closely, but Kang's eyes lift as the sword pulls him into a higher test. Inside the sword's judgment, Kang is told he will receive a proper reward if he survives what comes next. He remembers clearing an extra SS rank class advancement quest, but the judge cuts him down anyway. The arrows he made were only imitations of Slanarian, and luck may have carried him this far. So the judge orders Kang to make his answer right now. Power gathers before him, and the trial shows him the blacksmiths who forged Ares legends, all of them famous NPCs with names that already shake the game. Kang does not shrink from them. He thinks his skill is not inferior, so the kid faces the trial head on, while the watchers question how he can reach this level without leaning on a title. The legendary NPCs move first, and Kang gets driven back under their pressure. He catches one attack, eats another, and still keeps his hand in the fight because the sword is testing the blacksmith himself, not just his stats. Then one knight realizes the sword has vanished from where it should be, and the superior figure smiles like he has been waiting for that exact mistake. Coulson breaks into a booming laugh, and the hall knows Kang has forced the prophecy to answer. Kang snaps, "Damn it," but Ares congratulates him anyway. He tries to reject the credit, insisting it was not him and not even the other candidate, but the sword has already chosen its answer. Ares raises Kang into the God of Blacksmiths class. The new rule hits right away. His artifact crafting now ignores material level limits, and his mastery grows through the things he makes. Kang steadies himself inside the hall while the Tower Lords lose control around him. One of them shouts that he cannot accept it, because the Tower Lords have been waiting for the prophesied successor to receive the God of Blacksmiths revelation. A stunned lord tries to write Kang off as a clone, but another voice shuts that down. Even the clone event is listed in the prophecy, so the hall has no clean excuse left. Coulson steps forward as the Tower Lord of Bow Blacksmiths and claims his place in the argument. He pushes the prophecy toward Kang, and the other Tower Lords start shouting that Coulson has lost his mind. The whole hall turns tense, with Tower Lords staring each other down instead of celebrating. Lord Vance catches the mood and realizes these guys are not just debating a class change anymore. Coulson goes further and offers Kang the position of Vice Tower Lord. That is not a reward anymore. That is a public bet on Kang in front of everyone who wants him restrained. So Kang steps into the next battle, because the fastest way to answer the Tower Lords is at the forge and in the duel. A worried voice warns him that he accepted too fast, since Coulson is skilled even among Tower Masters. R reminds Kang how ugly this arena is for a normal player. Here, level and title grant massive skills and buffs, and Tower Masters also carry their own special abilities. But Kang reads the numbers differently. Since he changed into a god class, the old gap disappears. So this guy does not back away from Coulson's challenge. Kang activates God's custom-made creation, a god-grade skill built for a blacksmith who fights through what he makes. His weapon answers the duel first, and Coulson has to move before Kang takes control of the pace. Coulson feels the pressure and finally stops treating Kang like a lucky pick. He reveals that his own swordsmithing comes from a family technique passed down for generations. So now the duel becomes craft against craft. Coulson keeps digging into the wound he tried to bury. He says he once inherited his father's swordsmithing skill, but after taking the Great Vow, he accepts a different road and becomes the Tower Lord of Bow Blacksmiths instead. Coulson pours that old resentment into the duel and forces Kang to answer with craft, not muscle. Our boy studies the weapon, triggers God's custom-made creation, and starts building the exact counter while the fight is still moving. Deng watches Kang work and reads the method right away. Artifact power comes from imbuing the weapon with the right abilities and effects. Kang aims for one stat above everything else, Weapon Breaker, because breaking Coulson's sword is the fastest way to stop the Tower Masters from brushing him off. But Kang knows a snapped sword alone will not persuade men who live by the forge, so he steadies himself in the hall and prepares to show them a weapon worthy of the God of Blacksmith's title. Coulson sees Kang still standing and stops giving him easy exits. He warns Kang that since he has not run away, his skills will be tested as a successor of a god. Kang raises his hand and calmly introduces his sword. The Tower Masters brace for a normal dueling weapon, but Kang pulls out something finished, clean, and far above what anyone expected overnight. Kang brings the sword into the duel and presses forward before the room can settle. The weapon holds firm under his hand, and the onlookers finally stop treating this like a lucky blacksmith trick. Then the sword's details hit the room. Kang's first custom-made sword, rare grade, durability full, attack power 177, a rare grade dueling sword made in one night. That number lands hard. The Tower Masters are overwhelmed, and one of them admits Coulson was right after all. But the praise turns sharp fast, because another master glares at Deng and tells him he has made a huge mistake this time. The Tower Master wants more than a rare sword on paper, so Kang steps in and makes the duel answer for him. He drives forward with the weapon built for this exact test, and the first exchange knocks the smugness out of the room. Kang keeps pressing before the Tower Master can recover, and the strike lands hard enough to stagger him back. The watching masters stop arguing numbers and start watching Kang's hands. The dark armored figure's blade hits with a burst of light and glowing Korean characters, revealing an effect strong enough to stop the exchange cold. Facing him afterward, the armored knight asks, "Did you do that?" Kang holds the finished blade steady while the Tower Master gets stuck on one word: swords. The system confirms the nightmare for every doubter there. Kang's first custom-made sword, rare grade, full durability, attack power 177. In Kang's memory, Lord Vance calls him his son and talks about teachings passed down through the forge. That old swordsmithing line comes back through Kang's hands now, not as a story, but as a weapon the tower cannot ignore. Back in the tower chamber, Kang understands that snapping one sword will not move every Tower Master. He needs a result so clear that even the old rules have to make room for him. After the duel, the Tower Masters call Kang forward instead of challenging him again. A chest is brought out for him, and this guy smiles before he even knows how heavy the reward is going to get. The gift is not just treasure. Deng hands Kang a recipe passed down through the blacksmith's tower, then admits it is an unfinished bow design he could never complete himself. Deng says the god of blacksmiths has finally appeared, so the failed recipe now belongs in Kang's hands. Kang accepts it with the calm face of a man who has already decided to make the impossible expensive. Kang takes up the legendary bow recipe and steps fully into the role the tower has forced onto him. By the time he raises the bow, the masters are no longer testing a lucky player. They are handing work to the only blacksmith who might finish it. A player lifts 2 glowing cans and cheers, turning Kang's success into a public celebration. The win is no longer private. Other players are openly treating his achievement as something worth toasting. Back in reality, Kim Ji-han, Kang's old gaming acquaintance, can barely sit still after hearing what Kang pulled off in Ares. He admits he never expected Kang to be this good at the game, and for 1 second, the room almost feels light. Then Kim Ji-han drops the part Kang actually came home for. The hospital adds another 10 million won to his father's treatment, and Kang has to swallow that before the next bill even lands. Kim Ji-hun keeps going, because the bad news has layers. Kang's own burn treatments are getting more expensive too, so the money he earns in Ares is already being chased by real-world debt. Kang takes the hit in silence, but his mind goes straight back to Ares. If famous players can move crowds, then this guy decides he needs those names around him, not just better weapons on a shelf. At his desk, Kang finally says he has an idea. He looks down at his younger brother and promises, "Just you wait," then vows to stack achievements so hard he can carry him through the game himself. Soon the forums start doing the work for him. Players spread the news that Kang has become a legendary class, but the post that really catches fire says he defeated Barad, the legendary Swordmaster boss. Online users keep confirming the impossible result. Kang defeated Sword King Barad. That matters because the story spreading now is not just that he looks powerful, but that he has a verified legendary feat behind him. At the hospital now, Kang walks the corridor with the bills still sitting on his shoulders. Then his phone shows the first custom sword auction closing at 53,310, and the buyer tag makes him freeze. A lord bought it. Kang stares at the sale like the number might change if he blinks. Across the table, Kim Ji-hun reaches in as the shock hits both of them, because Kang's trash blacksmith work just became lord-level money. Online, Kang's name keeps spreading after that lord-level sword sale. One player flat out says he can never stop playing Ares now, and the posts start treating Kang's weapons like a shortcut through impossible trials. The buyer's message hits the point hard. Kang's sword helped him pass Barad's trial. It let him strike Barad's sword, open one clean gap, and even Barad reacts in surprise. Back in reality, Kang walks with his father's hospital bills still growing in his head. New medicine, hospitalization, burn treatment too, so the fame in Ares is not a victory lap for him. It is rent, debt, and another day keeping his father alive. Inside Ares again, Kang chases the next path toward Barad, but the game shuts the front door fast. The system says he needs level 200 just to meet Barad, and our boy is nowhere near that. Then Kang finds the loophole. Barad holds the Goyard Martial Arts Tournament every year for outsiders, and the level limit is only 50 to 60, so Kang finally has a road that does not require grinding forever. Barad runs that tournament because he wants talent with room to grow, not just high-level players. So Kang aims for the event, but first he gets pointed somewhere that needs a blacksmith even more: Castle territory. The order is simple: go to Castle, because their defenses are falling apart, and Kang's skills may keep the territory standing. Castle is a defense zone overrun by undead, and this guy hears the real mission under the quest text. Kang arms himself and decides he has to clear it. The sky over Castle erupts above the castle, and by the time he reaches the walls, the territory already looks half buried under the undead invasion. In Castle territory now, the system confirms Kang's entry, and the defenders greet him like a man arriving 5 minutes before collapse. A Centurion lander appears in the chaos, while the guards admit the undead numbers have suddenly climbed. The defenders explain the real disaster. The Holy Bell of Ramas is tied to the undead surge, so Castle's crisis is not slowing down. As the tower erupts in golden light and collapses under red-pink waves, Kang sees the source of the invasion getting worse right in front of him. The soldiers admit Castle got caught off guard, so they have been patching defenses while the undead numbers climb. When Kang asks if the bell can be repaired, one soldier hears Kang's name and nearly snaps awake. The soldier rushes Kang toward the command post, relieved that Deng finally sent help. Castle has been waiting for a craftsman, and our boy walks in carrying the one skill this siege actually needs. Commander Cal, the Castle Knight's commander, does not celebrate yet. He warns Kang that even Deng called the Bell of Lammas unrepairable, though one person in Castle is still hunting for a way to fix it. Cal checks Kang's level before trusting him with the crisis, and Kang answers that he is level 13,000. Cal tries not to blame him for coming, but his face says the number did not exactly heal the castle wall. Cal lays it out cleanly. Castle territory is already on the brink of destruction. When the main undead force starts moving, he calls it their day of reckoning, so he plants himself at the castle and chooses duty first. That warning turns real fast. A shout hits the command post, the defenders brace, and a soldier reports that undead are invading the eastern wall. At the eastern wall now, the siege breaks open as ghouls swarm in huge numbers. Cal throws up his arm and orders the line to hold, because if the gate falls, Castle falls with it. Kang reaches the wall while soldiers scramble around him, and the kid reads the battlefield against his last fight. He thinks that if this plays out like the battle with the orcs, then it is still possible. The system locks Kang into a territory defense quest: defeat the invading ghouls and protect the castle gate. The ghouls slam into the defenses, the castle shakes under the swarms, and Castle's defenders start shouting as the wall begins to drown in bodies. At the eastern wall, Castle's soldiers pour arrows and steel into the ghoul swarm, trying to keep the gate standing. The undead keep pressing in, so the defenders answer with one heavy counterattack that tears through the front wave. The strike rips open the ghoul line, and the soldiers finally get enough space to breathe. For one short moment, the wall holds. Lord Vance, the Mad Lord of Barden territory, enters the fight through a weapon technique called Pyeonjun, the baby arrow. The shot lands hard, but Lord Vance erupts with enough force to blast the armored fighter back instead. Castle's fighters steady themselves on the wall and confirm they can still move. One of them roars, "Bring it on," and Kang reads the defense with colder eyes than the panicking soldiers around him. The battlefield shifts as Ares throws Kang into a new phase of the defense. A giant siege ghoul appears, and the quest orders him to defeat it before it breaks Castle's wall. The giant siege ghoul lashes out across the fortress ground, forcing the fighters to scatter. Kang slips into the opening and prepares to draw the creature away from the defenders. Kang commits to the risk and drives straight at the siege ghoul, aiming to pull its focus off the wall. Our boy unloads everything he has, and the beast roars as the attacks finally bite. Kang checks the creature's reaction and realizes he has its attention now. That buys Castle time, but it also leaves him alone in front of the fastest thing on the field. The siege ghoul snaps back with its tendrils, and Kang barely avoids getting thrown into them. He catches himself mid-fight and thinks the thing is way too fast, then raises his weapon for one more decisive strike. Kang commits to the finishing blow, but Lord Vance reads it and answers first. He drives Kang out of the air with one cold line: "You're finished." Lord Vance, the territory lord behind this nightmare, stops looking like a quest giver and starts fighting like the disaster everyone feared. He roars, pulls more power into himself, and blasts Kang back before our boy can reset his stance. Kang shields himself through hit after hit, but the assault keeps chewing through his HP. Ares warns him that if his health hits 0, he gets forcibly logged out, and Castle loses the one blacksmith Deng sent to fix the bell. Kang cannot afford to disappear here, because logging out also means losing the chance to earn money for his father's hospital bills, so he forces one more attack through, and Lord Vance finally cries out in pain. Lord Vance snaps right back and pours everything into crushing him. Kang takes the full punishment, Ares drops his HP below 3%, and the kid grits out that he absolutely will not give up. Lord Vance tries to finish the job with another barrage, but Kang answers with the weapon he still has in hand. He fires back instead of running, and for one brief second, the Lord has to fight him head on. Kang is barely standing, but he pulls another arrow anyway. He tells himself it is not over yet, draws all the way back, and sends the shot straight into Lord Vance's next attack. The blast fades, and Kang is left with exactly 1 HP. He asks if it is finally over, but his eye catches the answer first: no. With nothing left to spend, Kang still raises his fist and refuses the ending in front of him. He spits out that he will not go down like this, and Ares starts reacting to that refusal. Ars answers Kang's refusal with a system warning. His HP is under 5%, but his will hits the requirement for God's Blacksmith, so the game unlocks a new skill: God's Emergency Crafting. The skill comes with a brutal rule. Kang has 20 seconds to craft a weapon, and that weapon will only last 30 seconds, so this guy gets one tiny window to end the fight. Kang locks onto that opening and tells himself, "This is my chance." Emergency crafting starts, the timer drops from 19, and Ares asks him to choose materials for his last shot. With the countdown chewing through every second, Kang throws himself back into the forge. He hammers through the pain, shatters the metal into shape, and keeps striking even as his body is barely staying upright. At 9 seconds, Kang plants himself with the unfinished weapon as the countdown keeps bleeding away. By 7 and 6, raw energy hammers downward, and by 5 it condenses into a glowing-eyed form, proving his emergency creation is taking shape before time runs out. Lord Vance does not wait for Kang to enjoy the miracle. He gathers another killing attack attack and fires down, but Kang meets it with the temporary sword instead of folding. The new weapon buys Kang enough power to break through Lord Vance's pressure. He gets hit, recovers with a grin, and launches himself back up toward the Lord before the 30 seconds run out. Later, inside a recovery room, Kang wakes up wrapped in bandages. Guards crowd around him, and his first thought goes straight back to the fight, as he asks how much time passed and what happened to the ghoul. Back in the recovery room, the guards burst with relief when Kang finally wakes up. He sits up before his body is ready, reaches for the armored guard beside him, and asks for the part everyone is dodging: what happened after the ghoul fight? The guard struggles to explain it cleanly, so he starts with the one rule that saved Kang. Ghouls are close to ghosts, weak to divine power, and Kang's Four-Seal sword came to mind because it drives away evil spirits. Kang pieces it together fast. That one-time emergency crafting skill was absurdly strong, but it burned out the moment he used it, so the reward lands with a little sting as the system hands him 2,000 gold. Then the robed official bows and apologizes for doubting him. When he thanks Kang for acknowledging him, Kang accepts the handshake, and the system quietly caps his character level right there. The calm does not last. The robed official leans in hard, still shaken by the fight, and says he felt divine power in Kang's sword earlier, so Kang gets dragged straight from recovery into another job. The official tells him Lord Vance has a legendary mineral, then leads Kang through the castle to see it. Kang expects a repair job, but the mineral is not cracked. It is shattered into fragments. The eye-patched officer asks if Kang can really remake it. Kang looks at the damage, thinks he did not expect it to be this bad, and still forces out the answer they need from him. Of course. Elsewhere in the castle, Bella, the vice commander of the Royal Knights, calls for her commander and rushes through the hall. Kang is pulled into a tense meeting, and the closeness turns ugly fast when Bella studies him and says, "You are a fraud." Nell, Kang's manager, pushes back because she has already been cleaning up the messes around him. She wants Kang recruited, sees him as the shortcut that can shoot the guild up the ranks, and warns Bella not to get in her way. Nell ends the confrontation by walking away, Cape billowing behind her. Instead of settling the argument, she cuts it off and leaves the clash unresolved. At Castle, Bella sees the damage done to the Bell of Lammas and goes cold. She mutters that if the bell ends up like this, the whole estate loses its last hope. Bella keeps circling back to one thought: if she can fix the Bell of Lammas, Castle might still survive. So she heads back to check it again, even while doubt is already eating at her. In the ornate hall, Bella runs into Kang and the tension snaps right back into place. She calls him a fraud, then repeats the word blacksmith like she is trying to make it sound impossible. Bella checks the bell fragments and freezes. The system declares the Bell of Lammas completely destroyed and unrepairable, so even the game itself is telling her to stop dreaming. Kang studies the broken material anyway, and starts working with it by hand. When the fragment responds, Bella stares at him like the rulebook just got torn up in front of her. Bella realizes the repair might actually be possible, and Kang simply holds up the dark material with a calm smile. This guy has the face of someone who just found a door where everyone else saw a wall. Outside Castle, the update begins and undead flood toward the estate. The defenders panic as the system announces a quest, then warns that Castle Estate will turn into undead territory after the timer ends. With the estate already under attack, one defender asks how they are supposed to make a bell now. Kang answers before fear can spread. It is possible. Kang takes charge and tells everyone to follow him. The defenders rally behind him, shouting for the others to hold on, because they still have to protect Castle. Inside the smithy now, Kang reaches the forge while the battle buys him time outside. Bella asks for his plan, and Kang says he will forge the material into a new bell if the fragment is complete. Inside the smithy, Bella watches Kang work without a game skill doing the job for him. She has never seen a repair handled like this, but Kang keeps hammering, trusting the hands everyone wrote off. Bella stares and asks if he is really making the Bell of Lammas by hand. Away from the forge, the Ares update staff already smell disaster. One staffer says the Castle Estate update is going to flop, but another snaps at him for giving up on update day. When the Blacksmith user comes up, a staffer answers with the one thing they all know now: Kang is no ordinary user. Back in Castle Estate, update day turns into a full siege while Kang forges. Lord Vance and the defenders try to hold the line, but the enemy keeps forcing them back, and the streets start falling apart around them. The defenders need more time, so they throw themselves back into the fight even as the creature batters them down. Kang answers with one brutal counter, but the strain bites into him right away. Our boy is paying for every second at that forge. Outside, the soldiers call for their commander and cling to Castle because this is the place they were born and raised. One of them curses the timing as the creature overwhelms the defense, and the whole line starts to buckle. Then a sound cuts through the battlefield. A defender hears it and freezes, because the roar of the creature is no longer the only thing shaking Castle. The Bell of Lammas has begun to answer. At the center of it, Kang drags power from the ground and forces it into the ornate bell, proving he can still make the weapon when the defenders think he is finished. The man in blue can only stare and stammer in disbelief. Kang raises the glowing bell again, and that one more summon keeps their chance alive. The system offers Kang a way to continue, and the battlefield barely gets a second to breathe. One defender stares at the bell's power and blurts that this is crazy, but Kang is already forcing the Bell of Lammas down again. Castle gets one more strike before the undead can swallow the line. Earlier in Castle territory, Kang rushes straight to the blacksmith shop because the city needs the Bell of Lammas remade by hand. The forge aides are already waiting, and Kang walks in with the blueprint like sleep has been postponed until further notice. Kang starts the divine custom forging and orders the forge hotter. Our boy hammers hammers beside the aids for days, dragging the giant metal body into shape while the shop slowly turns into a furnace with walls. The forge aids wear down first, but Kang keeps going because Castle still needs that bell. When the finished bell of Lammas finally stands behind him, even the exhausted workers can only stare at the thing he refused to let fail. Kang grips the hammer with tears in his eyes, then grins in the morning light like he did not just fight several days of sleep and lose. When someone calls him out, he mutters that he did not sleep that much. His body would like to file a complaint. Kang checks the completed bell and confirms the forge answered him. The resonance effect triggers, and Lord Vance steps toward the new bell of Lammas, so stunned that saying wow does not even cover it. The bell's status window updates as the new version settles into the world. A forge aide asks how a recreated item became stronger, and another admits he has never seen anyone pull off something like this. Then one aide calls Kang by name and begs him to stay with them from now on. The kid freezes for one very human second and thinks, is this a confession, or is this person just terrified of losing the miracle worker? Back on the battlefield in Castle, the undead surge again, so the knights throw themselves into the fight around the bell. The new bell of Lammas answers first, vanquishing the undead as the system declares the update stopped and a new story created. Kang raises his hammer in victory, but the days without rest finally collect their bill. He collapses as the system warns that fatigue has piled up and the abnormal state of fainting is about to take him down. Bella calls Kang's name as his body finally gives out, and she catches him before the victory turns into a corpse problem. When Kang wakes in a warm room, she is still beside him, so the first thing he knows is that the bell worked and he survived the cost. Outside Castle territory, Ari's users start arguing over Blacksmith Kang, and the loud ones mock him before they even understand what happened. Then the before and after spread hits the forums, showing the changed tower and the failed update, and the jokes start losing oxygen. Kang's blacksmith shop gets buried under follow alerts as strangers pile in after the castle miracle. Somewhere nearby, a man clamps his hands over his ears and complains about the noise, while Kang just smiles at the bell sitting behind his name. From now on, every player entering castle territory sees the bell of Lammas hanging over the land. The tower becomes the first thing they look up at, and Kang's work follows them before they ever meet him. After the fight, a tall messenger approaches Kang with a reward from Lord Vance, the territory lord behind the request. Kang hesitates at first, but the ornate trunk in the messenger's hands makes it very clear this is not a polite thank you card. The wounded messenger bows toward the trunk, but Kang keeps it simple and says he only did what needed to be done. He hands the reward over with that same calm face, and the barrier between them closes the castle job for good. Back in the real world, the payment hits Kang's phone, 330 million won. He stares at the deposit, then looks up with a smile, because his father's hospital bills finally have a real answer. At the office, the deal around Kang's shop turns tense fast. A businessman brings the paperwork, points to the time limit, and pushes for one answer. It has to be their blacksmith shop. The offer does not end with a quick payout. The key term is a 1-year commitment. He pauses over that length because accepting would lock him into the deal for a full year. A 330 million won deposit lands on the phone, and Kang steps outside smiling because the request has already turned into real payment. Near the old building, the suited businessman admits he made that request, tying Kang's new money directly to him. After the bell payment, Kang finally has money moving toward his father's hospital debt, but he still needs more. The person thanking him can barely hide the relief, and Kang takes it quietly, already looking at the next way to keep that hospital room paid for. Inside Ares, Kang checks the magic running through his clothes and the ornate item tied to the request. He studies it like a craftsman first, because for this guy, even a miracle starts as something he has to understand with his hands. Bella realizes she pushed the moment too far and blurts out an apology. Kang cuts the panic off gently, telling her the joke is not the important part right now. Kang reaches for Bella's hand, and the magic between them locks into place. The alliance answers hard, blasting outwards so violently that the enemies nearby can only stare and shout in shock. With that alliance made, Kang moves toward the next payday, and the name waiting there is not small. Bella hears he is going to meet Barad, the Sword King and one of Ares' 10 legends, and she nearly chokes on the news. Kang meanwhile stays locked on the practical part. While eating bread, he asks if Barad personally hands the prize money to the tournament winner, priorities intact. At the Goyard Martial Arts Tournament arena, the welcome comes with a dragon dropping into the middle of the stage. The announcer greets the outsiders, and the crowd learns fast that this is not a normal contest. The first trial begins before the participants can settle. A stone golem crashes into the arena, and the system gives them one order: survive the golems for 1 hour. Kang draws his weapon beside the other fighters, but the system adds a reward that changes the mood fast. Anyone who hunts a stone golem gets paid, and the target is a level 109 stone golem. The fighters rush in, trying to win the first hit before fear takes over. One of them insists the attacker has the advantage, so they commit hard and strike first. The stone golem answers with brutal force. One fighter's health hits 0, and the system forces him out of the tournament on the spot. When the golem turns on the people still standing, a combatant screams for the others to get away. The group finally understands the trial is far above the information they were given. Panic spreads through the arena, and one fighter starts yelling that they were tricked. Outside the fight, an urgent messenger demands passage to see Barad immediately, but the guards block him until Barad gives permission. mission. At the tournament gate, the guard blocks the messenger because Barrett has not granted permission. The messenger keeps pushing anyway, shouting that they must stop the tournament before the trial kills more players. Inside the arena, Kang steps into the golem fight and tells the shaken fighters to look closely. Our boy draws out one of his own custom weapons and forces the golem back before the crowd can even understand what he is using. Kang commits to the weapon instead of running, and his strike drives into the stone golem hard enough to halt its charge. The system identifies it as Kang's third custom creation, and the other players finally see the blacksmith fighting with gear nobody else has. Kang keeps pressure on the stone golem with rapid shots and a heavier follow-up, so the nearby players rally behind him. When one attack drifts too close to another participant, a player yells that it could count as a player kill, and the fighters scramble clear. The stone golem roars as Kang's attack stuns it for 4 seconds. A bow player takes that opening and pours everything into a finishing shot before the golem can move again. The shot slams the stone golem down, and for a second the arena thinks the trial is finally over. 3 players rush toward the fallen golem to claim the reward. The bow player realizes too late that the golem is still active and warns everyone to run. The stone golem counters from the ground, hurling him away before he can finish the job. Quick catch-up. Kang is holding the stone golem back with his own weapon, fighting to keep the tricked players alive. Kang refuses to let the trial reset around them, so he swaps weapons and calls out Lightbringer. This guy walks through the blast, raises the blade, and says it's not over. With Lightbringer in hand, Kang drives the next strike straight through the stone golem's armored body. The golem reels back, and the fighters still alive get one more chance to end the first trial. Kang's last strike finally breaks the stone golem, but the wind throws him off balance too. Barad watches from the throne and orders the tournament stop, because Kang is already past his limit. The arena stares as Kang keeps standing with Lightbringer in his hand. The blade has cut through stone, but our boy pays for it fast and drops beside the wreckage. Outside the arena, the Purim Era's support team gets dragged into the mess. A customer demands answers, but the support agent can only apologize, so the complaint jumps straight to the team lead. In the Ares office, the team lead hears what Kang just did and gives up on common sense. He says Kang is impossible to predict, and one agent feels it coming. This guy may become the strongest blacksmith. The next day, Kang reaches Barad sooner than expected and steps into the Grand Hall. The royal guards flare up the moment he appears, ready to punish a blacksmith for standing before their highness. One guard moves to shut Kang down, but Barad raises a hand and stops him cold. Kang holds his ground, gives the formal greeting, and introduces himself as a blacksmith. Barad looks down from the throne and tells Kang he took a while to arrive. This is Barad, Ares' 10th legend and the Sword King, and now Kang is standing directly in front of him. Barad says the journey here was difficult, and Kang does not argue with the Sword King in his own hall. When Barad asks if Kang knows why he was summoned, Kang answers that he does. Barad brings up the real problem. Even Deng, the Tower Master who runs the Swordsmith trials, failed this task, so Barad presses Kang for one clean answer. Why should he trust a blacksmith who just walked in? Barad's court makes the warning very clear. A warrior in heavy gear gets dropped with a groan, and Barad stands above the mess with guards at his side. Kang mutters that he came all this way just to face more doubt. Barad scoffs, then laughs it off, because the Sword King already has the test ready. Barad lets the pressure sit in the room before he shows Kang the material for the commission. The system identifies it as 100-year cold iron, a mineral that has held cold for a full century. Kang stares at the material and realizes Ares even has minerals like this. Barad wants an epic grade sword or higher that gives off cold air, and failure gets Kang expelled from Goyard Kingdom. Kang turns away with the reward already in his head. One request from Barad: for a broke blacksmith chasing hospital money, that is not a reward he can ignore. As Kang leaves, he notices Bella, the royal knight, tied to Barad's side, watching him way too openly. Kang thinks she is obviously a guard, then decides to play along and pretend she is not staring at him. Then the outside world cuts in with an alert. Kang checks it, leans back, and gives himself a short break from Ares before the forge can swallow the rest of his day. Back in the real world, Kang hears someone at the door and calls that he is coming. When he opens it, his mother is there, surprised to find him home, and the warm greeting lands before either of them can hide how tired they are. Kang asks what brings her to the house, and his mother starts explaining with an uneasy look. The visit is not casual, and Kang catches that before she finishes. At the doorway, his mother apologizes to Kang again. Kang immediately stops her from blaming herself, because he is already carrying enough without letting her add guilt to it. Kang tells her he has earned a good amount of money in Ares. Then, with Barad's impossible sword still waiting, he gets a call and says he has a good idea for the current quest. Tone hears Kang's sudden energy and asks what got into him. Kang does not dodge it this time. He is looking forward to the quest. At Kang's house, the new quest idea hits hard enough that Kang blurts out in pain. Over in Nell's office, Nell, Kang's manager, digs through Ares' data and freezes at the sword's 2 major effects. The records point straight at Kang's work because Barad's newly shown sword carries an engraved surging, and Nell, the manager, tells Kang he is finally thinking the right way. Then the call snaps sideways. Someone cuts in with a panicked wait, and Kang's mother grabs at him as the report turns ugly. Barad is trapped in a fire dragon's nest, and the flames around that place are already bad enough that escape is not simple. Inside Ares, the warning keeps coming from the burning dungeon. Kang demands what isolated even means, and the answer is worse than a bad connection. Barad is still inside the nest, cut off while the fire keeps closing around him. Back at Kang's side, Inside, his mother panics so hard she smacks the explanation into him first. Kang mutters that he should have known where Barrett went, so she rushes through the details before there is no rescue left to talk about. The Fire Dragon's Nest is not one cave. It is the name for a whole domain of fire attribute monsters, and Barrett walked into the worst part of it, the Ifrit's dungeon. When Kang hears why, the answer lands cold. Barrett went in for revenge. Inside the memory of that dungeon, Barad faces the sealed door with the sword he already has. He knows the moment he enters, he has to finish the fight, but even Barad admits the weapon in his hand is not enough. That is why Kang's sword is suddenly not just a commission anymore. Barad takes comfort in one thing. The subordinates who came with him escaped alive, but reinforcements need at least 3 days, and Barad does not have 3 days inside the Ifrit's dungeon. Inside the Ifrit's dungeon, Barad finally admits he should have waited for Kang's finished sword. Then his regret goes straight to Ban, his dead son, and Kang hears his own name cut through the memory before he answers father. Years earlier, inside the dungeon, Ban rushes in without warning, and Barad panics because his son has walked into the fight Barad wanted to keep away from him. Ban charges anyway, desperate to conquer the dungeon and become a son Barad can be proud of. Ban breaks first. He admits he is not strong enough, but Barad does not want an apology from his dying son. He begs Ban to stay alive. Ban clings to Barad and tries to apologize again, but his voice trails off, showing he is slipping away before Barad can save him. A voice calls for Ban to pull himself together as the moment sinks into silence. Back in the present, Bella pleads with Kang as a knight of Goyard Kingdom and asks him to save Barad. Kang looks at the ruined memory around him and thinks that if he had lost family like Barad, he would be reaching for anything too. That thought settles Kang's hands. He braces himself and promises he will do his absolute best, because Barad is no longer just a client waiting on a weapon. Back at the forge, Kang drives his hammer down with everything he has. The metal answers, the heat climbs, and this guy does not step back once. Kang pours the whole memory into the blade, from Ban's regret to Barad's rage. The system responds at last. The blacksmith's soul activates. The system reads Kang's passion, determination, and empathy as selfless absorption. With his glowing hammer raised and his face calm, he is no longer just striking metal. His whole focus is driving the craft forward. Inside the forge, Kang's first legendary sword finally takes shape. The blade comes out whole, and Kang lifts it like he has one job left in the world. Kang grips it and says, "Let's go." At the Fire Dragon's Nest, Barrett is still trying to hold Ifrit inside the dungeon until Kang arrives. The next blast smashes into him, and Barrett cries out, but he forces himself back up and tries to end the fight today. Ifrit, the Fire Dragon's Nest boss, shows its level at 409 and floods the battlefield with fire. Level 409 is a nasty little receipt. Barad calls its name and keeps standing, because if Ifrit gets out, the people outside are next. Barad pushes for the finish again, but Ifrit does not give him room to breathe. The dragon keeps pouring fire over him, and the system confirms the same ugly fact. This is Ifrit, level 409, and Barad is fighting it without the sword he needed. Barad stays in the fight anyway, and tries to drag Ifrit into one last exchange. He roars the dragon's name, swings with everything left, and the dungeon shakes under the hit. Barad raises his guard and snaps at Ifrit, asking how long it plans to keep this going. Kang reaches the fight and drives the new sword in, but Ifrit catches him in the blast before our boy can finish the strike. Kang gets thrown through the fire, screaming from the burn, but he does not drop the weapon. The kid forces himself forward again, and even Ifrit reacts when the sword starts answering the flames instead of breaking under them. Kang launches through the inferno with the legendary blade fully awake. Barad recognizes the weapon at once, and the sword turns Ifrit's own fire into Kang's opening strike. Kang pushes the fire sword past its limit and screams through the backlash. Ifrit answers with its own flames, but Kang keeps the weapon up because Barad still needs that opening. The flames bite straight through Kang's armor, and Ifrit's mocking laugh rolls over the battlefield. Kang drops to one knee and curses the failed strike, but the sword in his hand starts burning brighter instead of dying out. The red-haired warrior forces himself back up and lifts the weapon inside a massive flame explosion. He brings it down with red-black energy, showing his power is still rising when it should be burning out. The sword changes again under Kang's grip, turning Ifrit's fire into fuel for a colder attack. Crystal spikes tear up through the battlefield, and Ifrit's advantage starts slipping fast. Barad, the legendary swordmaster fighting beside Kang, moves in while the opening is still there. Kang presents the custom legendary sword made for him, and Barad accepts it without wasting a breath. Kang drives the new sword into Ifrit's attack and calls out Frost Flower. The technique punches through the dragon's flames and hammers Ifrit hard enough to make it scream. Kang sees Ifrit's body starting to break apart and realizes the dragon is trying to self-destruct before it dies. One ally warns that some monsters do this near death, so everyone still standing has seconds to move. Inside the fiery chaos, the red-haired warrior tightens his grip on his twin blades and tries to commit to his own choice. A female knight warns that his majesty ordered them not to come, so stepping forward now means defying that command. Ban refuses to stay back while Ifrit's fire eats through the battlefield. He says he'll go himself, and Ares answers by generating fire-resistant armor around him. Ban walks into the flames with his face locked down, but Bella, the vice commander of the Royal Knights, follows him in and drops to one knee. She tells him she came to escort his majesty back, so she will not leave him here. Bella pushes at the wound Ban keeps hiding and asks if this is about the necklace's owner. Ban shuts her out, so Bella admits she will never understand that grief, but she still refuses to let him disappear alone. Inside the flames, Ban finally says what he has carried every day. He prayed for his father to wake up, and now he begs him to let his son go. Barad hears him him and breaks. He calls himself a foolish father, admits he was wrong, and Ban answers with the one thing Barad cannot dodge: become a father his son can be proud of. Kang sees the opening and forces himself back into the fight. Our boy charges through the blast with his weapon ready, cutting in before Ifrit's self-destruction can swallow everyone. A knight panics and asks the stranger if his majesty is safe, so Kang shields Barad and tells them he will return quickly. Then Ares slams him with a forced logout penalty, dropping his level by 1. Barad turns and spots a distant figure he recognizes, and the shock stops him cold. His only response is a stunned question: Ban? Back in Ares, Kang has lost a level saving Barad, but Barad is alive, and that keeps Kang's path to bigger blacksmith rewards open. Inside that fading farewell, Barad grips Ban's hand and asks what he means by a final goodbye. Ban says Kang was right, then begs his father to stop living for the dead and live his own life. Ban's farewell breaks apart around Barad, and the blast tears through the dark. Barad comes out damaged, awake, and still carrying Ban's last request. Later, inside a formal room, Barad tries to put Ban's words into shape and admits the child saved him. Kang steps in, greets Barad as his majesty, and checks whether he is well before asking for the answer he still needs. Kang asks why Barad risked death to save him. Barad answers that he had 2 reasons, and the first is the burden Kang carries in his heart. Barad agrees Kang has read him correctly, then pays for the sword that saved his life. Ares drops 1,017,600 gold into Kang's account, and our boy needs a second to survive the number. Barad stands with his old dignity back and tells Kang he hopes Kang will keep living the way Ban asked him to. Kang accepts, and when Barad offers to share his stories once in a while, this guy says he would be happy to hear them. Kang reaches out and asks if he can call Barad, the man who gave him such huge insight, a dear friend. Barad takes his hand, and Kang quietly thinks becoming friends with a named figure like Barad is already a ridiculous reward. Kang answers with formal respect, saying the honor is his. Barad steps forward with dignified resolve, turning the exchange from polite words into a clear acceptance between them. Then the talk turns practical. Barad explains that Lord Vance, the territory lord, has recently been appointed as his successor, and Kang will need proper qualifications before he can receive Barad's swordsmanship. Barad refuses to hand his swordsmanship to just anyone, even Knight Commander Benson, so Ares drops Kang's next test in front of him. Land at least 3 attacks on Benson to earn Sword King's swordsmanship. Kang stands ready with his weapon gripped, but his covered eyes and slumped posture show the trial has paused before it begins. For now, the swordsmanship test waits instead of starting. Back in the real world, Kang finds a new place to live and signs the housing contract right away. He thanks the people who carried him through the late rent and the mess he barely crawled out of. With one debt of gratitude still sitting heavy on him, Kang calls Kim Ji-hun, the acquaintance who pushed him toward Ares. Kang says he is free and offers to buy him a meal, even if that meal turns into convenience store beer. Kim Ji-hun tries to brush it off, but Kang insists on treating him because Ji-hun has already given him too much. Then Kang sets a shopping bag in front of him and says it is a gift. Back inside Ares, Kang returns to Barad's swordsmanship trial against Knight Commander Benson. Benson refuses to go easy just because Kang is Barad's friend, so this guy draws his sword and rushes straight into the test. Benson blocks Kang and immediately scolds the weapon in his hand, saying a sword with such low durability has no business in a fight. Kang takes the hit through clenched teeth, but he keeps pushing because 3 clean attacks are all the quest asks for. The duel keeps going, and Kang does not stop at 3. By the time the system count appears in the hall, it records 59 successful hits against Benson. Kang stands there breathing hard and starts to say who he is, but the result speaks first. After 2 weeks of grinding, our boy has only learned 3 chapters, and he still has to raise his proficiency for the rest. As word spreads, players start digging into Barad, the Sword King, and the strange weapon tied to him. One of them asks what sword Barad uses, because he wants to look at it closely. The answer pulls attention back to Kang. The ornate sword carries Kang's name, and players remember the tournament winner's arrows had that same mark on them too. Outside the trial talk, the player rumors turn messy fast. One player checks his phone and guesses Blacksmith Yun is hiding his face because he is probably some middle-aged guy, while others say they will follow him anyway until he starts taking commissions. More players pile onto the same question. Everyone is suddenly interested in Blacksmith Yun. Kang sees the talk, wonders if the tournament winner is being tied to him, and decides he needs to stay careful for a while. Kang grips the engraved sword and keeps his head down, because the rumors around his work are already spreading too fast. He thinks he still has too much to do, so hiding his face stays on the list. A high-ranker client has a nastier problem waiting in the Salamander dungeon. He has tried that restricted zone again and again for his class quest, but every artifact he brings in melts before he can clear it. So the client messages Kang, hoping the blacksmith everyone is chasing can craft an artifact tough enough for that dungeon. Kang answers that he is already planning the item and will send the effects soon. The client stares at the reply and wonders if Kang can really make the exact artifact he needs right now. Kang thinks it over, checks what he needs, and starts digging through information instead of rushing the forge. At the frost mine, Kang reaches a snowy bridge and stops for a second at the size of the place. Ares marks him as the first user to enter, so his experience gain here doubles for 1 week. Bella walks beside him on the frozen road, and Kang asks if she has ever been here before. ore. Bella says no, then steps up as vice commander of the Royal Knights and presents her document to the startled mine official. The official catches the royal connection and stiffens fast. Kang keeps it simple and introduces himself as a blacksmith, because this guy is here for ore, not court drama. Inside the mine, the path turns dangerous almost at once. Stone breaks loose, the old ruins shake, and a sealed creature pushes out from the darkness ahead. Bella spots it first and asks if that thing is a monster. The mine official explains it is one of the creatures tied to the frost mine's old sealed zone. The official says monsters used to pour out all over the mine in the old days. A wizard sealed them inside the mine 100 years ago, and the barrier still marks their territory. With Kang holding his pickaxe, the official warns him not to get greedy. He says they may be able to enter the ceiling barrier, but inside it, the monsters have the advantage. Kang hears the warning and laughs with a pickaxe in his hand. The young master came for ore stronger than 100-year cold iron, so turning back now is not on the menu. Inside the ceiling barrier, Kang and his group run straight into the creatures the miners feared. One of them spots the intruders and screams for its father that guests have arrived, so the 100-year warning is alive and moving. At the frost mine entrance, the guide has done his job and quickly leaves Kang with the problem he came for. The first attack from inside the mine makes it clear that this is not a normal ore trip. Kang still pushes deeper, so he stops the miner captain and asks for the real prize. The miner captain eyes Kang's group and says they are a strange combo. Then Kang asks for 100-year cold iron or anything even better. The miner captain admits the better ore exists, but he refuses to hand it out. If people learn that kind of ore is hidden in the frost mine, he says the whole mine will fall into chaos, and the cold iron sits right there like trouble with a shine. The miner captain says no, but Kang does not back off, so the offer turns into a trial. The system gives him an A-rank quest, mine 40 ores in 1 week, with the reward changing by how much he brings back. The miner captain starts wondering what happens if Kang actually pulls it off. Kang accepts the pressure without making a speech, and the mine now has one outsider betting his body against a deadline. Bella asks Kang why he provoked the miner captain like that. Kang tells her he knew he was coming to the mine, so this guy came prepared. Back inside the frost mine, Kang reveals the tool he prepared, a magical hammer burning with blue-white energy. His provocation was not reckless after all, because he came with a special way to work the mine and begin shaping the weapon. 1 week later in the frost mine, rumors are already running ahead of Kang. People say the outsider has not left the mine all week, and even Kang hears the doubt around him. No outsider should be able to finish this. Then the promised deadline arrives, and Kang comes out of the mine with a pickaxe in hand. The miner captain watches the outsider return from the ceiling barrier, and the trial is no longer just talk. Inside the frost mine, Kang pushes deeper into the ceiling barrier and forces his way through the mine's attack. The miner captain watches from far off, already sure an outsider will fail, but Kang keeps moving and blocks the hit with his gauntlet. Kang charges the ore bed before the mine can swallow his chance. The crystal formation bursts open, and our boy checks the haul with one simple count, 200 pieces. The miner captain's doubt breaks first. He stares at the pile and blurts out that Kang might be a legendary miner, while Kang calmly brings out the real reason he survived the week. The tool is the Damascus sword, a unique weapon Kang made himself, with creator-only use and absurd durability. Right now, this guy is using it as a pickaxe, very normal sword behavior. The miners finally understand why Kang never begged the mine for luck. He accomplished the trial in his own way, so the whole pile of rare ore now belongs to the blacksmith, who refused to mine like everyone else. Outside the mine, the victory turns into a drinking party, and someone asks if Bella can join too. The answer is instant, so Bella gets dragged into the celebration before she can even settle her cup. Bella says it somehow just happened, while the miners start comparing the haul out loud. 20 pieces of white lotus and cold iron alone is enough to shake them, but Kang simply presents the Damascus pickaxe and lets the tool explain the rest. With the rare ore secured, Kang and the miners promise to give everything tomorrow. When one man tries to slip away from the celebration, the others pull him back, because nobody escapes a mine party cleanly. Back near the ceiling barrier, the mood snaps cold. A soldier worries there are too many monsters inside, but the responsibility gets pushed onto Kang once the rescue starts moving beyond the miners' reach. The old story finally catches up with them. The mage Valen sealed the monsters 100 years ago, and now that barrier is weakening. The trapped monsters surge out, Kang spots the threat, and someone warns that the seal is about to shatter. Near the mine entrance, the disaster breaks open in front of the waiting civilians and armored defenders. Blue explosions and purple slashes rip through the structure, so the rescue area itself becomes the danger they now have to survive. Kang grabs the nearest survivor and shouts for everyone to evacuate. When another rescuer tries to send him away first, Kang pushes deeper instead, because people are still trapped under the collapse. Inside the broken mine, armed enemies are already waiting, and Kang has to choose fast. The system drops the worst possible order on him. An A-rank emergency quest, 58 miners inside, 138 outside in danger, and 0 miner deaths allowed. Kang charges into the mine before the count can get worse. Bella hesitates when fear hits her, so Kang reminds her that outsiders and Ares do not die like the miners do, then takes the danger straight at himself. The enemy's attack pounds into Kang, and the kid barely stays standing. He lifts the cold iron greatsword and thinks he has never activated it before. But waiting is no longer an option. The cold iron greatsword wakes up in Kang's hands, and the mine fight shifts into the next round. An orc and a wolf boss step in together, so Kang plants his feet and dares them to come at him. Kang crashes into both bosses first, cutting off their path to the miners. He swears not a single one will pass, and for once the blacksmith is the whole front line. The bosses keep forcing through, so Kang stops saving strength and triggers Storm of Frost. across. The strike locks the enemies in place, ice spears closing around them, while the miners finally get room to breathe. Kang's cold iron greatsword seems to vanish the moment the skill fires, so he checks the weapon in his hands before the next wave reaches the miners. The craft finally answers him. With the right materials, the sword can put out this much power. Kang looks down into the dungeon and sees there are still too many monsters inside. He asks how the miners are holding up, and the answer comes back ugly. More injured people are trapped under the rubble and calling for help. The miners need a path out, so Kang drives forward with the cold iron weapon and swears they will save them no matter what. Then Ares throws the quest in his face. Clear the monster away, and the reward depends on how many miners survive. Kang tells the trapped miners to hold on a little longer and keeps cutting through the dungeon. To save his father, he cannot afford to fail here, so our boy pushes the rescue like every second has a hospital bill attached. With the miners still behind him, Kang locks himself into one promise. He charges back into the fight and roars that he will protect everyone, then throws his whole body into the monster, blocking the rescue. The hit drains him hard, but the dungeon does not give him time to breathe. When the barrier finally gives way deeper inside, Lord Vance, the territory lord known as the Mad Lord, closes in on Kang and turns the rescue into a direct fight. Lord Vance tries to crush Kang before the miners can be saved, so Kang meets him head-on with the weapon he just forged. The first exchanges force Kang back, but the kid draws out another blade and refuses to let Lord Vance take the passage. Kang breaks through Lord Vance's armored body and stands in the ruins, but the Mad Lord still has attacks raining down from above. Kang takes the blast, steadies his grip, and answers with one upward strike that shatters the armor apart, sending him through the collapsing debris. Lord Vance's armored copies fall apart around Kang, but the fight refuses to end cleanly. Kang keeps the passage blocked and drives through the next wave, while the system spits out tiny damage numbers instead of a real warning. The sword Kang forged finally shows its teeth. The sword of surging waves adds heavy bonus damage with every hit. Kang catches his breath, sees the rescue holding, and thinks the one thing he needed to hear: everyone is safe. Then Ares throws him a new order from mining Horian Rex: guide the situation for a bigger reward. Kang stares at the message and mutters that it wants him to guide things now, so our boy pushes forward instead of resting. Inside the broken dungeon, Kang starts pulling survivors together and catches Bella before she can drop. The miners cling to each other in the ruins, crying that they really survived. And then word spreads that the blacksmith dragged the monsters into the dungeon by himself. Kang knows the rescue is not finished yet, so he cuts through the cheering and tries to move again. But his body finally answers for the fight, and he crashes down before he can take another step. Bella calls him foolish because Kang is still trying to protect people while barely staying upright. He shields her through the last danger and downplays the whole thing, saying the fight was tough, but he got lucky enough to defeat every monster. After the dungeon is secured, the survivors rush Kang with questions before he can even sit properly. Banya, one of the miners saved in the cave, reacts like he has seen a miracle, while Kang winces through the attention and asks if everyone else is safe. The miners tell Kang they are all fine, so the danger has passed for them, but now every eye turns to his condition. Once he is alone, Kang sits in silence, and the cost of protecting everyone finally catches up with him. Kang finally blacks out, and his last memory is still the same move, putting his own body between the miners and the cave's last hit. Even asleep, the kid looks like he is still guarding people. When someone asks about cold iron, the answer comes back yes, and Kang steps into the room, still too worn out to process it. Our boy laughs weakly and tries an awkward answer, but his body gives up faster than his mouth does. Then the system opens a new message in front of Kang. Banya has sworn eternal loyalty to him, carries the potential to become legendary, and Ares now lets Kang take him as a retainer. Kang stares at that word because a retainer is not exactly a small thank you gift. In Ares' special user management office, a staff member panics while the team leader is gone, because a legendary tier NPC offering himself to one player makes zero sense to them. Banya explains it himself, gripping the pickaxe Kang made for him. He says he watched Kang mine with special tools, watched him save everyone, and now Banya kneels with his fist tight and says, "I swear an oath." The people around Kang can tell Banya is serious. Banya worries he lacks the right abilities, but Kang does not reject him, and this guy simply asks for time to think before accepting a life that now follows his own. Banya embraces Kang anyway, relieved that the door is not shut. The system updates again, letting Kang view Banya's information, and Banya smiles like all they have left to do is grow stronger together. A little later, Banya's excitement gets ahead of him, and Kang tries to stop the situation before people take it wrong. But Banya already charges into the snowy mining ground, and the 1,000-year cold iron reacts hard enough to tear open the whole area. The armored witnesses freeze around the cold iron crystals, stunned by what Banya just pulled off. Kang is right there trying to explain, while Bella warns him to be quiet before the bystanders misunderstand the whole thing. Before they can leave, a robed figure orders the group to stay a bit longer. Banya steps up beside Kang, and instead of backing down, he presents the glowing silver pickaxe he wanted to give him. Banya raises the enchanted pickaxe with a grin and tells Kang they will meet again. Kang turns to Bella after hearing her reaction and checks if she really just called it cool, because yes, he absolutely needs confirmation on that one. After the cold iron chaos, Kang leaves with something real in his hands, and that keeps him on the only road he cares about, forging in Ares until his father's hospital bills stop crushing him. Banya pushes the gift forward and says the thought matters. But Kang stares at the blue item window like the game just coughed up a problem. The item window finally settles, and the numbers are absurd. Durability at 12,000, attack power on a shield, and defense sitting at 401. Kang reads the name tied to the snake-haired woman and realizes this is no normal reward. It is Medusa's golden shield. The shield is not just for blocking. The moment it enters battle, it lets its holder stand against attacks head-on, and the quest timer still shows time left to claim the reward properly. That thing came with receipts. With the golden shield in hand, the fighter at the dungeon entrance finally stops hesitating. He grips the shield, declares he can conquer the dungeon now, and steps inside before the chance slips away. A few days later, inside a formal meeting room, Kang sits down to handle guild business while real life still hangs over him. When the official asks about his father, Kang admits his father still has not woken up, but he refuses to give up hope. Because Kang needs money and allies, the talk moves to the guild they plan to build. The papers call it an elite group, but Kang is already thinking about the people who helped him survive long before the guild had a name. Then Bark enters the conversation, the wealthy supporter who once transferred 400 million won when Kang needed help the most. The room jolts at the name, because Kang is recommending a man they barely know as a founding member. Kang does not dress it up, he looks at Bark's file and says Bark is someone he is truly grateful to, then puts that gratitude on paper instead of leaving it as talk. Kang's choice pulls the discussion back to what kind of guild this will be. Our boy has power now, real gear, and enough pull to bring people in, but the membership still has to pass judgment from the people already at the table. So the candidate asks to meet Bark in person, and the official agrees. That decision pushes the story out of the paperwork and into a harsher test, where fire erupts and another fighter answers with cold power instead of words. The attack should end the duel right there, but the white-haired fighter survives it and forces his way through the blast. The watching swordsman can only stare and mutter that it is amazing. Kang grips the ornate shield and realizes it actually carries every function he asked for. The white-haired fighter looks down at him in disbelief, while our boy plants himself in the flames like the shield belongs in his hands. The next hit throws Kang back, but the shield answers before the fire can swallow him. Its power erupts outward and the attacker loses armor under the counterforce. Fire races across the wooden structure, turning the fight into a spreading blaze instead of a clean duel. The heat surges again, and the opponent is caught staring in shock as the burst of light engulfs his face. The avatar presses harder because he wants Kang's name and the artifact's secret. He threatens to chase the white-haired fighter with his true form if he refuses, so the fighter braces behind the shield and pushes back. The white-haired fighter refuses to sell Kang out just to save himself. The avatar watches the flames close in and realizes this guy would rather die than hand over a companion. That loyalty forces the avatar to stop playing. A warning hits as he prepares a heavy spell, and the magic gathers fast enough to turn the whole fight into survival. The spell detonates and the avatar mocks him while the blast catches the white-haired fighter head-on. He is thrown through the spell's path, but he keeps moving instead of breaking. The white-haired fighter cuts through the last waves and comes out alive. The system marks the one thing he protected. He never reveals Kang's name, even while the avatar has him cornered. The white-haired fighter materializes in full armor, still braced for the avatar's next move. He stares at his own hands and breathes out that this is something new. Vera, the realm calling for help, opens before him as a world of green valleys and crystal rivers under siege. A gate to Grakthar has split open, and Vera names him the hero who has to seal it before the armies cross over. The system circles back to the choice he already made. He never gives up Kang's name, even with death in his face. The white-haired fighter answers like that part was obvious, because to him, selling out a teammate was never on the table. Then the armor settles in, and he realizes this is not just a reward screen. He asks if this is a hidden class change, and the system calls him a perfect tank with nothing missing. Quick catch-up, Kang's ally has become Vera's armored hero, still protecting Kang's name while fighting to seal Grakthar's gate. The class name lands, Epic Class Growing 1, with a path toward legendary status. It is built for someone who protects precious people. And the white-haired fighter finally smiles like the game just handed him a job he actually wants. He stands in the new Growing 1 armor with his confidence back. After getting cooked by a fake god and still keeping his mouth shut, the man earns a clean entrance. Back in the Goyard Kingdom, the new armor walks into a formal hall, and the gathered guild members stare like they are trying to reload their eyes. Kang is there too, watching the fighter arrive before the talk shifts to business. The armored fighter greets Bark, the supporter who already threw serious money behind Kang. Bark does not waste the moment. He says he will pay for the place, then pushes everyone to move. Inside the Goyard Kingdom private reception room, the truth finally comes out at the table. The famous blacksmith Hyun is Kang, and Kang sits there quietly as the room catches up. Kang and Nell, the manager, trade a look because she already noticed who he was and kept it to herself. Kang thanks her, and Nell says she never wanted to profit by using his name. Kang stays composed in the reception room, but the tension jumps when the armored fighter suddenly grabs Nell with his weapon out. Then Bark smiles from behind the armor and finally gives the room his username. Bark suddenly stands up from the table. His quiet seat at the reception turns into a direct interruption, forcing everyone's attention onto to him. Kang raises his hand before Bark can push the mood any harder, so the meeting cools down instead of turning into a fight. Bark takes the opening, greets him properly, and says he wants to repay Kang's gift the right way. Then Bark transfers 400 million won, and Kang almost loses his calm on the spot. Bark just shrugs it off as a gift and insists it is not too much. For Kang, that is hospital money level loud. With Bark's backing settled, Kang lifts the deal forward, and the news starts moving faster than the room can breathe. TV networks and internet stations pile onto the story, because Horian's top smithy guildmaster has shown up, and one of the 3 great artisans is now tied to Kang's name. Inside the broadcast talk, Dax of the Black Anvil Guild challenges the guildmaster's reasoning and asks if he is wrong. The guildmaster visibly reacts, so the announcement turns into a public test of the guildmaster's judgment. The host sees the viewer count and donations jump, so he leans fully into it. He yells that the guildmaster of Horian's #1 force has appeared, then realizes even Rawoon is watching and starts smelling money with both hands. So the broadcast brings Kang in before the hype slips away. The host announces Kang's arrival, asks what he does for a living, and this guy keeps it plain. He is just playing games hard for now. The chat starts throwing donations before Kang even gives them anything juicy. When they ask his age, height, and weight, he keeps every answer locked, so the commentator starts guessing wildly that he must be middle-aged and tiny. Kang turns under the hood, and the host gasps when the hidden guest's focused face is finally exposed. The mystery stops being just a tease, because the quiet blacksmith now has a real face in front of them. To turn that reveal into a full event, the broadcast announces a collaboration with the martial arts tournament. The mission is the time attack dungeon, and the rules hit hard. Even top blacksmiths might only make common grade gear under that pressure. The host hears those rules and decides this is the content that can revive his channel. He locks hands on the partnership, and Kang stands beside him calmly, while the staff already see jackpot numbers in their heads. 10 days later, inside the time attack dungeon setup, the broadcast crew keeps feeding Kang updates through the earpiece. As the camera stays on him, someone off to the side wonders if he is a celebrity now. The broadcast hype goes off the rails before Kang even fights, with one staffer blurting about marriage plans while Rawoon gets framed as his opponent. Kang keeps it simple. He wants a high enough grade to promote himself properly, so the whole event turns into Blacksmith Kang versus Rawoon. Nell, Kang's manager, smiles through the chaos and tells him the matchup is already being sold as a versus setup. If Kang clears the mission, the next broadcast has its headline ready. 10 days later, inside the time attack dungeon, Kang starts surrounded by skeletons while the broadcast goes live. A staffer watching the numbers nearly chokes when the viewer count jumps past 80,000. The system opens the run and lays out the job. About 40 monsters block the route, and Kang has to smash through them to destroy the red gem on a hill 400 meters away. The record holder's time sits on the screen, so Kang is not just surviving here, he is chasing a public record for money. Then the prize drops, 10 million won for the winner. Kang sees the number and thinks, 10 million won spins my eyes. So when the countdown starts, our boy launches forward like the debt collector is behind him. Viewers expect a sword, but Kang shows them a gauntlet instead, and the chat immediately questions why a blacksmith brought that to a dungeon race. Kang answers by swinging it once, and the item boosts his strength by 111 before extending his attack range. That extra reach lets Kang blast through the line instead of stopping to trade hits. The armored defenders try to hold him back, but the gauntlet punches through their guard and sends the target crashing down. After Kang clears the Cyclops and armored giant stages, the broadcast slows down long enough to show what he has been wearing. The host reveals the gauntlet costs 20 million won, and the watching staffer freezes because Kang just ran a prize mission with gear worth double the prize. On the broadcast, Kang holds up the gauntlet he just used to tear through the trial, and the host asks the system to reveal its information first. The officials agree to show it right away, so the gear stops being a mystery and becomes the next thing everyone can judge with numbers. Kang keeps his face steady while the host explains his suggestion. Put the artifact up for donation bidding while the run continues. The hall accepts, and the item window lists the custom gauntlet's boosts: strength, bow damage, arrow critical chance, and an active skill all packed into one piece. Kang remembers Nell telling him to start the bid at 10,000, and for a second this guy wonders if she aimed too high. Then the number jumps to 40,000, and his worry drops fast. Back in the trial ruins, the broadcast moves into stage 2 while the auction keeps running beside it. The host tells viewers to stay tuned, because the next artifact is coming up with a new fight attached. The system throws out a level 121 Cyclops, and the crowd immediately questions whether Kang can beat it at all. Kang answers by planting himself in front of it and taking the first attack head on. The Cyclops expects that hit to end the run, but Kang survives and drives straight back into it. One clean counter sends the Cyclops flying, and the announcer panics because that should have been a one-shot against him. Kang stands over the fallen Cyclops, breathing hard but still moving. Before he can cash in that win, the armored giant rises behind him and forces the next fight immediately. The armored giant rushes Kang before he can breathe, so Kang gives ground and catches the next hit with his gauntlets. The blast still throws him hard, but the arena announcer is already losing it over the last kill, shouting that Kang beat the Cyclops in one hit. Kang gets back up with the greatsword in his hand and laughs through the pain. The crowd wants the artifact reveal already, so our boy raises the sword and forces the stage to show what he made. The item window finally opens, and the watchers check the greatsword's absurd durability before Kang holds it up for everyone. Then the grade lands as normal, and Kang tries to laugh it off before snapping that the result is unfair. Back outside the arena challenge, Kang sits at his desk and studies the next craft material when a call comes in. He answers plainly, and the discussion shifts to the weapon record now sitting inside Ares, the game game system. Inside the Era's development office, a developer studies Kang's sword data and starts doubting the numbers. He asks if the result is too much, then stares at the monitor because the item behavior does not match what he expects. Back in the trial briefing, the final stage gets ugly fast. The guide warns that boss-level monsters will appear in large numbers, and Kang has to avoid them long enough to reach the hill with the flag. The briefing shows what happens if Kang fights instead of running, and it is not gentle. Even this guy thinks he would have quit the game if no one had explained the rules first. Then the trial names the real problem, a level 138 werewolf. Its hide is so tough that even users at the same level struggle to hunt it, so charging straight in costs Kang blood before it gets some progress. Kang hears all that and chooses the worst possible answer for the monsters. He decides to hunt every boss in the stage, then drive straight back into the werewolf with the next strike. Kang goes back at the level 138 werewolf, and this time his forged gear punches through its hide. The werewolf snarls in pain, gets thrown back, and the other bosses stop looking so untouchable. Kang keeps hunting instead of running, so the boss pack starts dropping in piles. When the last strike tears through the stage, the trial marks his work as completed perfectly. The developers watching the trial lose their calm, because Kang is clearing the final stage in the exact way the rules were built to punish. Their screens fill with questions while our boy stands there holding the answer in his hands. Ours traces Kang's bow back to a Jeju Island folktale about King Daebyul, who used a legendary bow to shoot down the sun and moon. The weapon takes shape as the Chungun boar, and Kang finally has something made for killing from far away. Then Ares throws a bigger problem at him. A gate to Grakthar has opened, and armies of goblins and orcs are marching through it. If Kang cannot seal that gate, Vaer's world falls with it. Inside Ares' mythic vision, a golden sun rises as an old memory begins. A father tells his child that long ago the living world had 2 suns and 2 moons, and the whole world burned under them. In that story, King Sabyul asks his older brother King Daebyul for help. Daebyul answers with 1,000 gunbor, shoots the extra suns and moons down one by one, and the father passes that tale to his child with a hand on his head. Back at the forge, Kang turns the folktale into a build plan. A true 1,000-gun bow is too heavy, so he cuts the idea down to a 600-kilogram bow with 70-kilogram draw weight and decides, let's try it. Kang pours his materials into the craft, and the 1,000-gun boor finally takes form in his hand. He raises the finished weapon, and on the next werewolf hunt, the new boor proves itself when his shot slams into the beast. With the Chungun boar, Kang stops trading wounds up close and starts deleting werewolves before they can maul him. 2 kills become 10, and the system confirms every hunt. Deeper in the forest, Kang feels the air shift the second he steps in. A stronger predator roars, fear grips his body, and this guy has to fight his own panic before the beast even reaches him. The new beast crashes down on Kang and detonates the forest around him. It roars through the blast, still coming, and Kang's bow has to answer something far worse than the werewolf pack. Inside the forest, the fragment of Fenrir crushes the ground around Kang before he can steady his bow. Its roar hits first, and Kang's body locks up as the system brands him with fear. Fenrir presses the opening with another brutal strike, and the hunt stops being a normal werewolf chase. The system names the beast at level 178 and posts a reward for anyone who can bring it down. Outside the forest hunt, a watching player nearly grabs his own head off when he hears what Kang is facing. He blurts that a monster like Fenrir showed up in the Time Attack dungeon, and now Kang's little hunt has witnesses sweating with him. Back in the forest, Kang takes the hit and feels his body give out under the stacked debuffs. The werewolf tears into him with Bloodclaw, and the system adds bleeding on top of fear. Kang reads the problem fast. His strength is dropping because the statuses are eating him alive, so our boy stops trying to muscle through it and boosts himself with a crafted item, raising his strength by 111. The werewolf flinches the second Kang's stats jump. Kang drives forward before it can recover, and the fight finally tilts away from pure survival. Kang chases the werewolf through the narrow path and takes another head-on hit without backing off. He pushes through the wreckage, lands the finisher, and stands over the defeated beast, still bleeding but alive. With the werewolf boss down, the deeper threat forces Kang into a dead end. The fragment of Fenrir closes in, pulls the young master toward its jaws, and Kang fires from the worst possible spot. Pinned inside the attack, Kang finally releases the Chungun bow's real skill. The system calls it Strange 1,000 Gun, and the struck area gains the weight of 1,000 gun, then 10,000, until Fenrir's own body becomes the trap. Back in Ares, Kang has one job after all this pain: turn his blacksmithing into enough money to keep his father alive. So when Fenrir's fragment tries to swallow him, our boy makes the Chungun boar pin the beast under its own weight. The watching armored fighter stares as the attack throws the beast back, and even the enemy can only choke on how stupidly strong that shot is. Kang stays on his feet in the wreckage, bow still in hand, and the hunt is no longer chasing him. The moment players realize what the Chungun boar can do, the begging starts. Kang shuts it down right away and says he will never sell it, while one fan practically melts down, asking him to sell. Fenrir still has enough left to threaten him, so Kang stops treating the boar like a prize and uses it like a promise. He launches in, grips the weapon with both hands, and drives the final attack straight into the white beast. Back in the workshop hall, the system confirms Kang survives with 82% HP left. Then it unlocks the next door for him. He can establish a guild now, and that gives this guy a place to gather the people his work keeps pulling toward him. Kang looks at the new guild crest as the people around him celebrate finally belonging somewhere. When the system asks for a name, he chooses Guangming, Gwangmyeong, and Ares makes it official. The system names Kang the Guildmaster of Gwangmyeong and grants him the title Lord's Grace. He does not stop to enjoy the promotion because he still owes Barad, the legendary swordmaster, a promise. Kang announces he is heading to the Goyard Kingdom, and the court immediately panics. An official begs that this cannot be allowed, but Barad already knows exactly how dangerous that road is. Barad tells them land is not given to people who have done nothing. With his hand resting on his beast, he asks if he looks like a king who makes that kind of decision lightly. Then the warning widens beyond Kang's guild. For centuries, Vera has been torn open by rifts, and in Erdor, the last human kingdom, mages risk a summoning to pull in a hero from another world. Kang appears before them, and the people beg him to save their world before he even understands where he is. The system welcomes him into Vera, then drops him at class selection with mage, warrior, cleric, and hunter waiting on the screen. The Vera system keeps rolling before Kang can breathe. It offers legendary pets, explains stats and loot, then tells him the real prize is guild play, hard dungeons, raids, and boss hunts. Before Kang can start that new road, the real world cuts in with a phone call. Nell, his manager, who keeps tracking the money around him, reaches him with news that donations have hit 25 million won. Back inside Ares, Kang runs into Nell in the town square, and she is almost shaking from how big the game has become. She catches herself, then pushes our boy toward the next job. Bring back another hidden quest if he can. Kang thanks Nell for always looking out for him, and she answers him the same way. With Guild Gwangmyeong now riding on his name, even a simple thank you lands with money, trust, and pressure behind it. Kang brings up the beasts beside him and explains they came as a gift for clearing the last dungeon. In Barad's court, those wolves are not decoration, because Barad calls them part of the power behind the Goyard Kingdom. Then Barad pauses when the messenger announces Kang has arrived. Kang steps in with the strange force around him, and the room immediately locks onto one question. Why does a blacksmith carry that kind of aura? One official guesses Kang's equipment is causing it, but Kang shuts that down fast. He only repaired the gear, so the wolf's reaction sends the room looking at Kang himself instead. Kang asks Barad why he summoned him, and Barad keeps the room calm by saying Kang is not a bad person. Then the reason comes out. Balas is a blacksmith village, once prosperous, now close to ruined. That request pulls Kang toward a new problem outside the palace. Balas keeps losing its blacksmiths as if they are running for their lives. The bald villagers' panic says the village is not just poor anymore. And Edril, the trade manipulator behind the company choking them, is now part of Kang's next fight. Barad's people tried to save Balls before, but every attempt ended the same way. The villagers fought, lost ground, and the blacksmiths kept fleeing like the village itself had turned on them. Kang hears that and thinks back to why Barad called him in. Barad has already watched normal help fail, so Kang gives the only answer he can. He will go. That night in Balas territory, Kang arrives with Barad's delegation at the ruined blacksmith village. The streets are too empty for a place that used to live by its forges, and Kang says the problem is already obvious. One of Barad's men spots a lit building, so the group heads there first. They step inside, and Kang calls out, hoping someone still has enough trust left to answer. The room stays silent for a breath. Then something hidden inside the building stirs, clutching an ornate weapon like the intruders have walked straight into a trap. Kang calls again into the empty room, and the answer comes from the shadows. The hidden figure tightens his grip and panics, asking who dared come in. The frightened guard challenges them at the door, ready to treat them like more of Edril's people. Barad's delegation quickly says they were sent by Barad to investigate Balas, and that makes the guard hesitate. To stop the guard from running or swinging first, the delegation presents Barad's royal decree. One member drops the document and backs away, giving the guard room to check it himself. The guard picks up the decree and studies it with shaking hands. Once he confirms Barad's seal is real, the village has no choice but to let Kang hear what Edril has done. Per Lord Vance's former personal blacksmith gives Kang his name at last. One of Barad's delegates realizes he is the blacksmith they were looking for, and Per, the village blacksmith, steadies himself before telling the ugly part. Per says Edril first came smiling, loaded with expensive gifts and a proposal that sounded harmless. Lord Vance already wanted Balas weapons to become famous, so Edril's company settled into the village without anyone raising a blade. Per says the trap closes during a meal with Lord Vance. Edril's side turns a playful wager into bait, and the young lord accepts before he understands what he has just invited in. The Mad Knights arrive after that wager, and the village stops being a workshop. The blacksmiths who fail to run are dragged off in carts under guard. Kang watches the memory of Balas burn and clenches his fist as Per describes families forced to witness Edril's cruelty. Our boy asks Per if he also worked under Lord Vance's people, because the answer decides whether Per is a victim or part of the chain around them. Per says everything breaks on the day Lord Vance loses that bet. While the Lord falls under the wager's consequences, Per chooses the blacksmiths instead and moves to save the people Edril is taking. Back in the hidden room, Per finishes his confession and thanks Kang for listening to an old man's regret. Kang calls out to stop him, then carefully says he wants to help. Kang is caught off guard when Per doubts him, so this guy gives the one answer Per understands. Kang is a blacksmith too. Per accepts the heart behind it, even if the room still feels one breath away from disaster. Before Per can take that hope anywhere, anywhere, Lord Vance finds the hideout and spits that the old man was hiding there all along. He steps in armed and furious, ready to drag Per back into Edryl's game. Lord Vance blocks Per's escape and orders him to accept Edryl's wager right there. When Per refuses, Lord Vance raises his weapon and makes the price simple: take the wager or die. Kang throws himself between Per and Lord Vance, blocking the attack before it can reach the old blacksmith. Per snaps that this is blackmail, not a wager, and Lord Vance keeps pressing anyway. The examination window names the opponent. Books, the master blacksmith examiner, stands at level 299 against Per's 230. Lord Vance says Per can live if he wins, then adds that Per will still end up a slave. Lord Vance calls that mercy with a straight face. The contract makes the trap clean. Fail the examination, and Per must obey Edryl's terms. Per goes quiet, then forces himself to stand in it, because backing down now leaves every blacksmith and ballast chained. Lord Vance accepts the condition as soon as Per's life is on the line. He laughs like he has already won, while Per stares at the armed men and understands there is no soft way out. Per steadies himself before the examination starts, and one knight salutes his superior with a sharp sir. Then Per turns to Kang and thanks him, saying the time was short but it mattered. Kang falls silent in the night outside the forge, replaying the wager and the old man's last chance. So our boy moves with Per toward the trial, where the examiner and Edryl's people are already closing in. With Books waiting to judge the work, Per raises his hammer against the pressure crushing him. He tells himself he must forge the greatest sword of his life, then drives every strike into that one answer. Kang watches the rhythm of Per's hammer and catches the moment the sword changes. Per lifts the finished blade, and Kang knows it by instinct. A blacksmith can feel a masterpiece before anyone reads the grade. Elsewhere in Ares, watchers panic over Per being treated like some passing villager, because they know he could become the future 11th legend, but they cannot interfere directly, so Per has to survive the forge with Kang's help alone. Back at the forge trial, Kang locks in and starts teaching Per through the work. The system marks it clearly. Per is receiving the teachings of a master blacksmith. Kang pushes the lesson faster because the examination gives them no room to breathe. Per follows the strikes, Books watches every movement, and the next mistake could hand Edryl the old man's life. Back at the forge trial, Kang rushes Per through the last steps because Books' exam gives them no time to breathe. He tells Per to quench the blade in oil instead of water, then keeps him steady through the polish so the pressure stays even. Per lifts the finished sword, and the old blacksmith does not treat it like a test piece. He grips it like something he never thought his hands would make again, while Kang lets the work speak first. Books still has the higher level, so Per has to answer him with the sword itself. Per attacks, Books blocks, and the completed blade finally forces the exam to judge the craft instead of the old man's stats. The verdict hits the room hard. Per's sword comes out as an artifact close to legend, and everyone has to face the same problem. An opponent who should have been unbeatable just got passed by Kang's teaching. Per realizes he has surpassed Book's own examination standard, and the old man nearly breaks on the spot. Before he dies, he says he has created a sword like this, and that is enough to make the whole trial stop breathing. Then the system drops the ruling Books never wanted to hear. Books has failed. In Ballast Territory, Belen's domain, all blacksmiths are granted freedom, and the territory's development rises by 10%. Books admits defeat after Per's blade settles the fight. Per stands with the sword in hand, no longer begging the exam for mercy. But Kang is not done with Books yet. He challenges him to an evaluation, and the room turns cold because Kang is pulling the examiner into the same kind of judgment he used on Per. Books freezes when the system accepts the challenge against Kang too. Even he stammers over being included, while the display reminds everyone Kang's level is still low. For a moment, Kang is left to face the next step alone. A tall robed figure presents him with a contract, making it clear this is no longer just a fight, but a formal demand he has to answer. Books lays out the price with a calm face. If Kang fails this evaluation, he will cut off Kang's arm. That is the same arm Kang needs for every weapon, every coin, and every hospital bill waiting outside Ares. Kang hears that threat and hardens instead of stepping back. This guy looks at Books and thinks he cannot let a man like this walk away clean. So Kang faces Books head on as the evaluation begins. Books points to Kang's weapon and demands the sword. And now the examiner has to judge the blacksmith standing right in front of him. Books wants Kang's arm, so Kang answers at the forge instead of with his mouth. He drives the final heat into the blade and starts the quench, thinking only about finishing before Books can twist the trial against him. Books is already counting his win and decides the sword should only reach unique grade. Then Ares announces a legendary grade sword is complete, and the room goes quiet fast. Books catches the worst part a second later. Kang finishes before the expected time. The power transfers cleanly, and our boy lifts the sword like the evaluation just handed him a weapon and a receipt. With the sword finished, the trial turns into judgment. Belen forces the thief down with both blades and says he will make him pay for his past crimes. Belen keeps the blade at the thief's throat and demands the rest. The thief breaks, then admits he hid the stolen item in the basement of the Merchant Guild building. The confession puts the stolen item within reach, but the fight is not over yet. Belen draws out the Sword of Raging Waves and drives the enemy back before he can bury the truth again. A fighter lashes out with purple energy from his glowing claws, forcing the armored opponent to brace under the impact. The opponent answers with an upward sword swing edged in white-blue power, pushing back before the assault can overwhelm him. Books is still crouched after the confession, but Kang does not let the old cruelty slide. Our boy tells him the stolen goods are not enough, then turns to Per and apologizes for dragging him into the shock of it. The elder realizes the young man is being asked to choose who will judge the punishment, and the weight of that authority leaves him breathing hard. Then the elder states it plainly, he is granting him the power to decide the punishment. Kang accepts Pur's choice, so the room shifts from revenge to judgment under Ballast law. The knights kneel, and Pur repeats the one thing now in his hands, the authority over Book's punishment. Pur asks where Bellin is, and the answer lands fast. The Lord is probably still locked inside, so Pur heads straight for the prison, carrying the one decision Books never wanted Bellin to hear. In the prison now, Pur finds Bellin behind bars and breaks down with relief. Pur clasps his hands and cries, "My lord," while Bellin recognizes him in disbelief. Inside the prison, the young man worries about how the woman got there and warns that the place is dangerous. Before anyone can escape, a bald man in black robes blasts the woman with glowing energy, turning the rescue into an immediate fight for survival. Pur leads Bellin out before the prison can swallow the story again. At the open door, Pur bows, and Bellin steps back into his own territory as a lord who finally has witnesses, knights, and a prisoner waiting. Back in the Grand Hall, Bellin sees the gathered knights and the captured criminals, and the shock hits him at once. The armored men tense up as their lord arrives, and Books' punishment is no longer a private grudge. In the Grand Hall, the captured men finally understand who walked in. One of them stammers for confirmation, and Bellin answers plainly that he is the lord of Ballast territory. Bellin hears that Pur was supposed to decide the punishment, but he stops before handing it off. His own people were attacked, so he steps down toward the prisoner himself. The captive panics and shouts that this is madness, but Bellin shuts him down with force. Bellin says touching the people of his territory is unforgivable, and Kang watches the lord take the judgment back into his own hands. Bellin calls Pur over, and Pur answers at once. When Bellin gives the order, Pur accepts it without arguing, because the lord is finally standing in public again. The guilty men try to cling to their slave claims, but Bellin turns that law against them. He sentences Books and the others so they can never hurt innocent people again, and the underground prison becomes their last address. Bellin cuts Books off and has the prisoner hauled away, saying he has had enough and has other things to do. Books rages that the punishment is ridiculous and that no one has the right, but Bellin's order is already being enforced. After the sentencing, Bellin finally faces Kang in the ornate hall. Bellin is still shaken from captivity, but when Kang rises, Bellin asks why he is standing like the dead is on his side. Kang stays close and speaks gently, pushing Bellin to think first about his people. Bellin's anger drops, and the lord takes Kang's hand as the room settles around them. Only then does Bellin realize they never even introduced themselves properly. Kang gives the simple answer that matters. He is a blacksmith, and Bellin answers with gratitude for saving Ballast territory. Bellin thanks Kang again for protecting his territory, and promises half of Book's confiscated assets as a reward. The Lord's grace activates on Kang's sleeve, and Bellin begins to speak about the suffering still left behind. Still in Ballast territory, Kang has just been promised half of Book's seized assets, and for one breath, that reward looks like hospital money for his father. Then Ares triggers Lord's grace on him, a B-rank blessing given when a lord judges a favor unforgettable. Kang stays still and reads every word. Kang starts to piece it together and guesses the answer is probably Pur, the blacksmith tied to Bellin. Now Kang's manager cuts in fast because Pur already serves Bellin. In Ares, a vassal swearing himself to another lord counts as a serious crime. The proposal shifts from payment to allegiance, and Kang finally understands the cost of accepting. Someone may swear loyalty directly to him. He stiffens at the thought because taking a vassal would turn this reward into a binding relationship. Bellin still kneels with his hand over his heart, ready to put himself at Kang's side after Kang saved his people. Nell tells him to stand and keep speaking, so Bellin forces the words out and commits himself to Kang anyway. Nell pulls Kang back into the moment and tells him to accept before he fumbles the biggest reward in the room. Kang takes the vow, and the people around Bellin now treat him like the man who saved Ballast territory, not some random blacksmith passing through. Bellin is congratulated, and Pur gets credit for helping turn the territory around. Kang looks past the celebration and says he will clear Barrett's quest next. That one line snaps the room awake. Later in Ballast territory, Bellin gathers the territory's blacksmiths because Kang needs their hands for what comes next. The men grumble about the order, but once everyone arrives, Kang stands in the center like he already knows the first complaint coming. The blacksmiths see Kang's age before they see his skills, so they ask why some kid and outsider is supposed to teach them. Kang answers with action and tells them he will show a demonstration first. At the Ballast Forge, the older blacksmiths still expect a normal lesson, so one mutters that Kang probably has nothing special. The elder blacksmith gives him a fair chance anyway, and tells the others to watch Kang's skill first. Kang finishes the sword, and the whole room locks onto it. The game confirms an epic grade weapon, and the elder blacksmith loses every complaint he walked in with. Kang meets the elder's stare calmly, and the elder finally asks how he made it. Kang agrees right away, because this is not a flex anymore. It is a class. Kang tells them sword making is not just about shaping metal. The blacksmiths gather close, and our boy promises to teach them everything he knows. That promise changes the room. The elder bows to Kang as a teacher, and even the men who doubted him start taking the lesson seriously. 2 weeks later in Ballast territory, the exhausted blacksmiths look like they survived a full campaign. One of them admits he learned more than he expected, and the 32 blacksmiths of Ballast promise they will never forget Kang. Kang leaves them with more than a few tips. The elder blacksmith reaches for his hand, Kang takes it, and the men around them accept that Ballas has changed. Soon after, Kang walks through Ballas and sees the market moving again. Craftsmen hammer out better gear, fighters test fresh weapons, and the town that was sinking now has people cheering in the streets. Because Ballas starts drawing attention, Ares pulls Kang into another Vera vision. Vera, the broken realm from earlier, has suffered for centuries after rifts opened and chaos poured in, and Apodor stands as the last human kingdom. Inside that vision, a desperate envoy begs the summoned hero from another world to save them. Kang barely has time to panic before the tutorial welcomes him into Vera again. The tutorial throws the usual choices at him: mage, warrior, cleric, and hunter. Then it stacks on pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, event raids, and boss encounters before pushing him toward the start of the adventure. Back in Ballas territory, Kang tests the new sword himself and keeps his voice calm like he still expects a trick. A local youth watches the blade bite harder than it should, and his shock spreads through the shop fast. The youth tries to brush it off, saying this level of sword is only average around here. Kang hears that and starts doubting the whole thing, because if this is average, Ballas has quietly become a nightmare for every other territory. Kang studies the sword again and thinks the kid may just be an NPC bragging. Then the item window answers him. A common blacksmith sword. Epic grade, full durability. Made in Ballas. Quick catch-up. Kang has rebuilt Ballas into a powerhouse, but Vera is calling again, and he's fighting to save its last human kingdom. A streamer catches the sword's stats and instantly sees a chance to pull users toward Ballas. He goes live, the chat explodes, and viewers start asking where that territory is before he even finishes reacting. Later, the streamer checks the time, but Nell's call hits his phone first. The poor guy goes from hype to panic in one ringtone. Nell reports the real damage from that stream. Users are saying Ballas artifacts are incredible, and people are flooding into Ballas territory. With that reaction, Kang's territory quest completion rate starts climbing hard. While Ballas turns into the hot new destination, the pressure around Ares reaches the real world too. At a table, Kim Ji-hoon, Kang's old Ares contact, gets asked how work is going and whether the game is still moving. Kim Ji-hoon grumbles that work is the same, but Ares just dropped a new quest update for his job. When he gets asked about joining a guild, he admits he still has not picked one. Kim Ji-hoon tries to buy time, calling himself valuable enough to think it over. She only gives a weak yes before their guild talk collapses into a petty fight, with both of them grabbing at each other's clothes over the meat. At the hospital, Kang walks into his father's room and softly says he is here. His father lies under an oxygen mask, and Kang sits beside him with their hands locked together. In the memory, the silver-haired man takes charge and tells the red-haired woman to follow him. Her answer shows why that matters. She trusts him because he is an adult she can rely on. Kang tells his father that anything good he earns has to help both of them. He grips that promise hard, then leaves the hospital room with one soft goodbye. Tomorrow, Dad. In the hospital corridor, Kang walks out alone, but his mind stays beside the bed. His father lies there under the oxygen mask, burned and bandaged, while Kang's hand still remembers holding his. Inside the Kingdom audience hall, Kang returns to Barad and reports that he finished the task. Barad has already heard Kang drove out the troublemaker, so he asks the real question: how far did Ballas develop? The system answers before Kang can dress it up. Ballas territory sits at 150% development, and Barad actually has to stop and process that number. Kang explains it plainly. He taught the Ballas blacksmiths what he knew. Because their work improved, visitors rushed in, and the territory grew faster than anyone planned. Barad approves and calls Kang forward. For the result, he grants him 1.5 million gold, and our boy goes quiet as the system drops the money straight into his account. Barad says even 40% of the original goal would have counted as saving suffering people, but Kang blew past that, so Barad offers him an extra reward, and Kang snaps back with real surprise. Then the reward pulls Kang into Vera, a world that has suffered for centuries since rifts opened and chaos poured in. In Eredor, the last human kingdom barely holds on behind a magical barrier, as reality starts tearing around it. In Vera now, nobles stare at Kang like the answer to a prayer. One pleads for the hero from another world to save them, and the system confirms Kang has entered Vera as a summoned one. In Vera, the system rushes Kang through the basics before he can even breathe. It lays out the 4 starting classes: the pet system, stats, loot, dungeons, guild raids, and boss fights. Then tells the summoned one his journey starts now. Still inside Vera's Grand Hall, Belin, the Lord of Ballas territory, steps into Barad's reward and says Kang deserves something extra. Kang hears that and blurts back, genuinely caught off guard. An additional reward? Belin confirms it, and the system names the prize. Kang can receive a blacksmith shop granted by Barad. For a broke craftsman chasing hospital money, that is not a trophy. That is income with walls. Belin pushes Kang toward Ballas territory, saying a private forge there fits after Kang's major contribution. Kang shuts it down with one clean word: no. Belin asks if Kang refuses because Ballas is too small, but Kang is already thinking past size. He tells Belin that approach is wrong, because a forge only works if the territory can actually feed customers into it. Belin catches the plan behind Kang's refusal and admits Kang is thinking far ahead. Then he praises Kang's judgment as a ruler and offers him territory someday if he ever wants it. Belin ends the meeting by saying he will call Kang separately when another task appears. Kang accepts the order, but Belin's final line lands cold. This whole reward talk has been a test. Back in Ares, Kang reaches a large ornate door and meets Nell again. Nell is already thinking something bigger than one shop, so he shows Kang the building and announces it as their guild's new base. Inside the new base, the group checks the location and agrees it works. Nell has picked a spot near the capital traffic, so Kang's forged gear can reach players without waiting for luck. Then Kang turns the meeting sideways by saying he also needs to talk to Nell. Nell reacts hard when the word noble comes up, and Kang confirms it like he is asking for paperwork instead of dropping a political bomb. Kang stands by the table and lays out the order Bellin gave him. Sir Kang is being pushed to become a noble. Nell stares back and asks what he even means, because their guild-based meeting has just turned into territory politics. Bellin, the lord of Ballast territory, admits he is still lacking as a ruler, so he pushes the territory talk straight onto Kang. He says Kang's own actions made one thing clear to him. Kang is the person who should lead a territory. Kang expects a reward, not land, so he nearly chokes when Bellin says the reward is a stake in the territory. Then Ares opens a hidden S-rank noble quest built around Bellin's intent, and the reward is exactly what Bellin just offered. Kang's new title talk does not stay quiet for long. A noble claim this big gets challenged fast, and the answer comes back blunt. The other side calls it impossible. The challenger presses harder, demanding to know if Kang's guild is not the only place that can handle the work. Kang does not argue. He returns the wrapped item, and the challenger accepts the refusal in silence. That failed request keeps moving through armored ranks until it reaches the name everyone already tried. Even the Black Anvil refused the dragon artifact, so the commission finally lands in Kang's shop. At Kang's guild base, Russell appears for the first time as a desperate client chasing one impossible commission, a dragon-imbued artifact. The shop receives him properly, and Russell heads for the building because he has run out of better options. Inside Ares' interface, the system reminds players that raid monsters and boss encounters are where rare rewards come from. Russell studies the unclear image tied to Kang's reputation, but the face is too blurred to trust. At the guild entrance, Russell meets the hooded blacksmith and offers a careful greeting. Kang steps forward and introduces himself as the blacksmith Russell came to find. Russell did not expect the famous craftsman to look this young, and his surprise slips out before he can hide it. Kang faces him calmly while Russell accepts that Nell's recommendation led him to the right person. Russell warns Kang that a dragon-imbued artifact is not ordinary, so the deposit will be expensive. Then he catches himself because the Black Anvil already called it impossible, and Kang is treating the request like a job he can actually take. Russell leaves in a rush, still clinging to that last chance. Russell stops running from the truth and admits he came to Kang grasping at any straw he could find. His father is fighting illness, and the one thing he still wants is simple and impossible. He wants to see a dragon. Kang hears that and stops treating the request like business. He tells Russell he will show him something, then starts emergency crafting on the spot. Kang forces a dragon into shape through the rushed craft, and the creature appears before Russell with enough pressure to make the room feel too small. When it lunges close, Kang holds his ground and lets Russell see that the miracle is real. Back at Kang's workspace, the job becomes official. Russell's request window greets Kang and lays it out plainly. He does not need battle power, only an artifact that can show a dragon. Kang studies the request instead of rejecting it, so Russell waits across the workbench with his last hope sitting between them. The job is strange, expensive, and outside the usual rules, but Kang keeps reading. Russell braces for another refusal, but Kang accepts the commission. This guy looks at the impossible part and decides he wants the challenge. After Russell leaves, Kang stays with the commission document and works through the problem alone. He has already made a rush dagger that can call the dragon once, but that is only a shortcut, not the finished artifact. The deadline lands hard. 1 week. Russell wants the dragon soon enough for his father to see it, so the people around him move right away, instead of waiting for perfect preparations. Kang refuses to take Russell's money up front and keeps the work tied to results. Russell has come in desperate for a dragon artifact, so when Kang offers his hand, Russell grips it like this is the last door still open. At the hospital, Russell's family moves fast because his father's time is running thin. Lee Tae-ha reaches the bedside first, lowers his voice, and tells his father he is here. Lee Tae-sung wants to give the old man the one thing he keeps asking for, so he urges him to go see the dragon. Tae-ha leans over the bed and keeps calling Tae-sung's name, trying to pull him into a conversation they have avoided for too long. That talk pushes Tae-ha back to his phone, where Tae-sung is still saved as big brother, but when Tae-sung sees Tae-ha chasing Ares again, he snaps at him for clinging to a game, and the old fight opens right back up. Lee Tae-sung, the eldest son of Hansung Group, stands on duty and pride. Lee Tae-ha, the youngest son of Hansung Group, stands on one stubborn hope. This time, the game can actually bring their father a dragon. Tae-sung has heard Tae-ha promise this before, so he throws it back at him. Tae-ha answers with hard resolve, says this time is different, and steps in first before doubt can stop him. Inside Ares, Tae-ha rushes ahead and runs straight into a supernatural enemy. The danger closes in, but his thoughts jump to one person who might change the outcome. Kang. Kang Hyun-soo stands with his hammer and a glowing aura. The other man recognizes him, so Kang is no longer just a name being hoped for. He is the fighter now, in front of them. Kang's mind catches on the sword he once restored with his father. That memory steadies him, because every job like this pulls him back to the same wound. A father who needed saving, and hands that still refuse to quit. Back in the world of Vera, the realm has suffered for centuries after rifts opened and chaos poured through. In Eredor, the last human kingdom reaches for a hero from another world, because there is no normal rescue left. Kang arrives in Vera and finds himself treated like the answer to a prayer. The summoner begs him to save their world, while Kang reels as Ares announces he has entered Vera. Then the tutorial tries to sort him into the usual hero paths: mage, warrior, cleric, or hunter. Kang reads the choices, and the world waiting for a savior has no idea it just called in a blacksmith. Back in Vera now, Kang still has one road back to his father's hospital bed: earn through Ares, survive long enough, and turn blacksmithing into money. The tutorial keeps pushing normal hero rules at him, breaking down attack, defense, stamina, loot, legendary gear, dungeons, guild raids. And boss fights like Kang came here to play fair. Years earlier, before Vera starts calling him a hero, Kang remembers the sword he once restored with his father. That memory pulls him back to the forge, where this kid learns the work by touching metal, heat, and failure with his own hands. Kang raises the restored sword over the anvil, proud for half a second, then takes another delicate weapon into his hands. He hammers it with everything he has, but the finished piece leaves him kneeling from strain instead of smiling. A woman comes over while Kang is still down, and the work does not stop. They craft side by side at the table, because Kang is trying to protect his father's title as a master craftsman, not just finish one pretty object. That old memory stays sharp because Kang once watched these pieces with his father, but when he tries to rebuild the dragon form from memory, he thinks memory alone isn't enough, and the half-made creature above him comes out wrong. Inside an elegant showroom years later, a suited visitor arrives with a young girl, while a tall hooded figure follows behind. The visitor explains that his own father showed him this sword when he was little, so he knows exactly how it should feel in his hands. The visitor raises a hand and freezes, hit by the memory of seeing that sword as a child. His father once led him right up to it, and the wrapped blade in front of him now unsettles him, because it clashes with what he remembers. The room turns quiet when the visitor says a master craftsman restored the sword a few years ago. The woman in glasses catches the name behind the work and realizes it may be Kang, and her face gives her away first. The masked Kang greets the woman as his teacher and asks if she has been well. Then he faces the visitor, and the whole visit becomes clear. The man came to see the sword Kang's father restored, and yes, that is exactly why he is here. Kang holds back whatever else he wants to say, then turns from the room with his mind already made up. After seeing the sword himself, this guy knows what he has to fix next. Back at the forge, Kang stops chasing the memory and attacks the problem through craft. The furnace roars, the metal heats through, and Kang stands before it with the sword in hand, ready to rebuild the dragon artifact from the source instead of guessing. Kang lifts the sword as old texts and scattered scrolls come out around him. If the dragon cannot be copied from memory, he will drag its shape out of myth and make the forge answer. At the forge, Kang digs through old dynasty records instead of trusting a half-broken memory. The annals say Haemosu came down from the sky with 4 divine beasts, and Kang locks onto the one detail he needs, the sword tied to the sky itself. Kang grips the sword and thinks through the missing piece. If the dragon artifact belongs to the sky, then this guy has been forging the wrong half of the story. Ars answers his need with a strange window. As if the game has heard the wish behind the hammer, Kang turns toward it, tense but ready, and asks if he can really help. Back in the real-world hospital, 2 staff members stand by while Kang's father lies in bed with a tablet in his hands. The old man stares at the screen and admits the wish he can barely hold in. He wants to see a dragon. Kang takes that wish straight into his chest. He raises his hand with a grin, then stands in the corridor and promises he will show his father a dragon. Back inside Ares, Kang logs in and arrives in Barden territory, the beginner zone. Before he can settle in, a middle-aged man is already speaking and gesturing nearby, so this return starts with an immediate encounter. Kang looks up and freezes because he cannot make sense of what he is seeing. A hooded figure tears through the air, and Kang runs while screaming for his father, turning the moment into a family emergency. In Barden, an older man meets Kang and tries to steady him before panic takes over. Kang pushes for time, smiling through the pressure, while the man's face says this is already bigger than one promise. Across the plaza, players notice instructors moving together toward the same place. They wonder why every instructor is rushing toward the old forge in Barden, and the answer pulls the whole town after Kang. The older man only tells Kang he will understand once they arrive. Then the path tightens into a courtyard full of armed soldiers, and nobody there looks calm anymore. A system notice marks the Barden territory under Ban's name, and the urgency spikes. The rider reaches for Kang and orders him onto the horse because they have to move now. Kang climbs onto Lord Ban's horse while the rider groans through the rush. Then mounted knights race in through the heavy rain, proving the situation is serious enough to mobilize armed soldiers. In Barden territory, under the rain, the knights drop fast while the rider snaps the reins and drives the horse harder. Kang holds on as the grassland blurs past, and the rider finally asks what everyone is thinking. Who exactly is Kang? The older man grabs the rider from behind just as danger cuts into their path. The rider yanks him off the horse in one desperate dodge, and a red-armored enemy steps out with weaponized limbs ready to tear through them. Inside Ares' world of Vera, the story behind this panic opens up. Vera has suffered for centuries after rifts poured chaos into every corner, so Eredor, the last human kingdom, tries one last ritual and begs a hero from another world to save them. Kang arrives in that grand hall, stunned, as Ares welcomes him into Vera. Ars throws Kang straight into the rules. The game offers the usual clean choices: mages, warriors, clerics, hunters, pets, loot, dungeons, guild raids, and boss hunts, then pushes him toward the start of his journey before he can even breathe. Back outside the game, the monitoring team sees something so wrong that one worker asks the team leader if his eyes are broken. The leader says no, and the office starts moving around the screens because Kang is making it happen in real time. Back in Vera, a robed figure laughs as Kang walks into the fantasy world like he has no plan to back down. Then an armored warrior towers over him, and our boy grins right up at him, while the watchers realize the impossible event is coming from Kang's side. Back on the Barden Road, the escape breaks open. A cloaked attacker slams the older man from behind, and the ambush reveals a demonic knight and a massive armored beast rising over the escort. The escort admits they chose this monster-free path on purpose, so this attack was never supposed to happen. He pushes the group toward the border anyway, and promises to guard them until they reach it. The beast swings down, and the person below freezes in terror as the escort meets it head-on. Its roar fills the road, and Kang's safe passage turns into a fight before the border is even in sight. On the Barden Road, the escort throws himself between the group and the armored beast. He bought this route for safety, so when the attack breaks through anyway, he stops the creature long enough for Kang and the others to run. At the main gate of the fortress, Bella, the Royal Knight's vice commander, takes over with her weapon already drawn. The older man urges Kang, "Let's hurry," and the whole group pushes through before the ambush can catch them again. Inside the gate, the guard stops at his post and sends Kang deeper in. The knights open ranks for him, and Bella asks if Kang is the acquaintance her friend has been waiting for. Bella tells Kang the kingdom's vice captain will move him fast, then stares at him like his Ares record makes no sense. She wants to know what kind of gameplay this guy has been doing, because the next stop is not a normal quest. Bella finally says it plainly: they are going to meet a dragon. Russell, the knight who requested the dragon artifact, almost chokes on the word, but the cavalry keeps moving because Kang's forge work is waiting ahead. At the meeting point, Kang and Russell arrive where the finished work waits. The crafter presents the golden artifact and announces the dragon artifact is complete, so Russell takes it with both awe and fear in his hands. The artifact answers the moment it leaves Kang's hands. Power floods out, the dragon takes shape above them, and the fortress falls silent under a creature most players only talk about. Then the dragon rises over the stone fortress and cuts across the sunset sky. Russell looks up and cries, "A dragon in the sky," and for once, nobody has a better line ready. Later, after that impossible dragon becomes real, the miracle shrinks into something Kang can actually hold. He lifts the small dragon companion and tells the child it really is a dragon. The child laughs in Kang's arms, and Kang talks about living far away one day. When Taesung grows up, he promises to show the dragon again with Taeha beside them, and the kid clings to that future like it is already close. Russell keeps the small dragon close to the people he wants to protect, and the old man in his arms finally sees the sky monster with his own eyes. Russell kneels with him and admits he only wanted them to see it together before they had to leave. Back at the stone room, Kang sits alone with the Dragonfire sword finished, and Russell tells him the weapon did more than look impressive. The second Russell held it, several choices opened in front of him. In reality, Nell, Kang's manager, stares at the payment slip and asks how much money he wrote on it. Kang does not haggle or dress it up. He simply hands over the number, and Nell, the manager, is shocked by how high the payment is. Kang laughs once the cashier's check hits his phone, because for a man drowning in hospital bills, that blank white screen turns into real breathing room. That number does all the talking. Inside Vera, the world itself opens with a warning. For centuries, rifts have poured chaos across the realm, and even goblins now roam where people used to live. In Eredor, the last human kingdom, mages tear open a summons because they have no cleaner answer left. A shocked summoned man lands among the robed figures, and they beg the hero from another world to save them. The system welcomes him into Vera, then throws him straight into the basics. Classes, pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, bosses, no gentle warm-up. Later, at a memorial altar, Russell faces the older man's portrait while mourners stand in formal black beside him. When he is asked if he understands, he nods yes, confirming he accepts what is being said in that funeral room. In that quiet room, the dragon's power rises in Russell's mind, but the elder speaks about life, not battle. He tells Russell to live happily and experience things money cannot buy, and Russell bows his head because he knows the world is harsher than that wish. Russell looks aside, steadies himself, and chooses the path the Dragonfire sword opened. He stands and declares he will make Hansung the best, so Kang's finished weapon has pushed him into a new life instead of just a stronger build. Inside the new guild hall, Russell walks in with the Dragonfire sword decision still fresh in his head. Kang's guild has only just formed, so every new member matters, and Russell is not arriving empty-handed. Russell presses the guild emblem and steps into the hall, where Kang comes up behind the seated pair at the table. Kang's tense reaction shows the guild meeting is already turning uneasy, instead of becoming a normal welcome. Russell asks Kang if he remembers what he said before, and Kang has no idea where this is going. Then Russell says he wants to show him directly, and the Dragonfire sword answers before the conversation can stay normal. The system lays out Russell's first path, Dragon Lord, a unique ruler class that can command many subordinates. Russell remembers the moment he touched Kang's Dragonfire sword, and saw two choices open in front of him. When Kang asks if Russell has decided, Russell hesitates for only a second, then he chooses the other path and says, "I'll be a Dragon Knight." Clean answer. Big upgrade. The Dragon Knight path forms around Russell as a guardian role, with the dragon fighting beside him instead of sitting behind him. The class exists to protect others, so Russell chooses it for the people standing in that room. Russell tells Kang and the others he wants to protect them all and grow with them. Kang accepts that answer, and the handshake turns Russell's choice into a real alliance. From there, Guild Gwangmyeong makes it official. Russell has joined. Inside the guild, he interacts with a female member and answers when someone calls him, showing his class choice has now become actual membership. Russell suddenly remembers the person he ran into at the museum, and Kang's face changes the second that clue lands. Before he can sort it out, someone calls for him urgently, and this guy gets dragged straight into the next mess. Outside now, a figure waits and watches, so the guild's calm little welcome party ends fast. Nell calls out to Kang, then stumbles over Russell's name as everyone turns toward the new arrival. Kang gives the formal hello first, trying to keep the meeting polite, but the masked visitor stays silent in front of him and closes their eyes as their expression changes, so the greeting turns into a pointed confrontation. Kang pauses and looks upward, clearly trying to process what just happened. Around him, the young man with glasses looks shocked while the suited man stays composed, showing the encounter has shaken the group instead of ending with a simple introduction. Outside, a huge red steel structure is already under construction, so the operation has moved from talk into real work. A suited man smiles while a hooded bandaged figure watches, making the next step feel officially underway. The system frames the whole thing as a Dragon Knight reveal built around Kang's crafted item. Nell, Kang's manager, catches the sudden event unfolding and asks what all this is, but the answer is already sitting in front of them. The guild locks onto the actual goal, raise Kang's blacksmith shop ranking. Everyone rallies around it, because Russell's rare Dragon Knight class can pull eyes toward the shop faster than another quiet sales pitch ever could. Inside the broadcast setup, Vera is shown as a world getting ripped open by rifts and chaos. Its last human kingdom calls for a hero from another world, and the summoned player lands there screaming as Ares welcomes him to Vera. The tutorial floods new players with choices: mage, warrior, cleric, hunter, pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, bosses. It is all built to make the Dragon Knight look like the prize everyone wants to understand first. Back with the guild in the rain, the members gather under their mark and commit to pushing Kang's shop up the rankings. The young master is not chasing a title here. He needs the shop to bring in money and work. Kang checks the Korean blacksmith rankings when Nell asks where the shop stands right now. The answer lands at 48th, and that number gives them their starting line. Kang reads the rankings and thinks Black Anvil, Golden Shield, and Hammer are locked into the top 3, which would make climbing brutal. Nell immediately corrects him. Those shops do not actually hold ranks 1 through 3, so the ranking fight may be less impossible than he assumed. As Kang touches her shoulder, both of them focus on that new information. Kang locks onto that chance, but Nell still refuses to spoil her broadcast plan. When the live display opens, over 186,000 viewers are already waiting, and the chat starts snapping at the host to stop stalling. Nell calls Russell out as the Dragon Knight, and the viewers immediately jump on the one question everyone cares about: where did a dragon even come from in Ares? The broadcast host admits Russell is bait-tied to Kang's shop, then demands proof before the crowd loses patience. Russell agrees and explains that he started as an ordinary knight class, not some hidden chosen one. Ranked 21st in the country as a knight, he powers up in front of the broadcast to show the jump with his own body. His proof stops being talk when a strike blasts the other figure backward. Then a massive horned beast with glowing eyes appears, so the demonstration now has physical evidence instead of just a title claim. Russell stands under the broadcast lights like he already knows the deal is sold. He reaches out, seals the agreement with a handshake, then draws the legendary custom sword from Kang's shop because showing the item is faster than explaining the build. The sword's stats hit the screen: legendary, custom made, 8,000 durability, and 534 attack. Behind the broadcast, the operators spell out the plan: show the dragon, show the sword, and make every viewer connect Russell's new class to Kang's forge. Russell says the swords cannot be mass-produced, so the rarity becomes the selling point instead of the weakness. On stage, he tells the audience that rare items feel more special, and the control room believes the broadcast is about to lock Kang's shop into the top ranks. Inside the digital space, Kang hangs in the middle of the system grid while everyone else celebrates too early. Then a voice cuts through the broadcast and flatly says the whole claim is incorrect. Right now, Kang has one clean path left: make Ares pay enough to keep his father in that hospital bed. So when the broadcast voice says Russell's big sword reveal is wrong, Kang freezes and asks what part of it is incorrect. The confident caller hijacks the moment and orders the team to bring Kang out in front of everyone. The control room snaps into motion because the broadcast has stopped being a sales pitch and turns into a live challenge. The operators warn each other that Kang is suddenly being targeted, so they start preparing before the situation runs away from them. At the same time, the viewer count climbs past 423,000, and every mistake now lands in front of a crowd. After the broadcast, in a quiet room away from the stage, Nell checks on Russell while the rankings update. Kang's blacksmith shop breaks into the top 20, and Kang lets himself breathe for 1 second. They actually made it? Nell, Kang's manager, celebrates first because the request pile is no longer normal work. VIPs who used to go straight to the top shops are now sending commissions to Kang, and this guy is suddenly staring at money that can actually touch his real hospital bills. Kang reaches for the next request and starts to say they should begin, but the system cuts him off. A new message arrives, then another line drops. It comes from the Black Anvil Guildmaster, the current #1 black Blacksmith Guildmaster. The room goes still as the message opens in front of them. Everyone leans in asking what it says, and the first line addresses Kang directly. Kang reads that the #1 Guildmaster wants to speak with him in person, and even Nell can feel how big that is. Kang's inner alarm does not need a tutorial for this one. Soon after, Kang walks through an ornate hall for the formal meeting. He stops alone under the high ceiling. Serious now, because the next offer comes from the top of the blacksmith world. Inside the formal hall, Kang faces the undisputed #1 Blacksmith Guildmaster across a table set for a private deal. The Guildmaster greets Kang like an equal and lays out a clean offer. If Kang accepts, he gets pulled straight into the top of the blacksmith world. Kang sits through the pitch without jumping at it, so the deal stays undecided for now. Across the table, the Guildmaster keeps smiling with calm confidence, as if he believes Kang has every reason to accept. Kang thanks him for the good offer and gives his answer carefully. Soon after, this guy walks up to the registration desk and says he came to register, and the staff react like Kang just skipped several normal steps. The desk staff are still trying to process him when Kang finishes the registration and starts to leave. One receptionist calls after him that he will be out soon, so even the people handling the paperwork know the stay will not be normal. Later, Kang notices how late it has gotten and checks his phone. When Nell's name comes up, he calls for her because she has been listening closely enough to make her own move. Nell tells her companion she heard the whole conversation and feels sure now. Then she asks to be scouted herself because Kang looks different from the other players chasing power in Ares. Nell thinks Kang is a decent person, but she is not just being sentimental. She needs to grow fast too, so choosing Kang becomes her next step. Back in Ares, the new path opens because Kang has pushed his blacksmithing far enough. A job quest appears telling him he can now proceed with the sword left by the god of blacksmiths. Kang remembers that when he first changed jobs, a level limit blocked him from digging deeper. He admits he barely studied these job quests back then, since he was busy chasing other quests for money and progress. Then the quest window shows the real cost, level 100 to 130, an unknown reward, and failure strips him of his right as a descendant of the god of blacksmiths. Kang looks at the penalty and still chooses to move forward. Kang looks toward the distant tower and says it has been a while since he saw familiar faces. The young master points himself toward that strange old place, and the tower waits ahead. At the tower base, Kang's job quest stops being polite and drops wolf-type beasts right in front of him. The trial wants proof, so the beasts rush our boy before he can even settle in. The wolves try to overwhelm him in a pack, but Kang answers with the gear he brought for exactly this kind of beast. Fenrir's equipment makes wolf-type monsters whimper, and the 1,000-pound weight effect starts crushing them down. Around the tower, the knights are hit by the same magical fire wave and thrown back as their defense collapses. The trial is no longer only testing Kang, because everyone at the tower is now stuck inside the attack. Coulson, the Tower Lord of Bow Blacksmith, snaps first and says Kang never had the qualifications from the start. Deng, the Tower Master handling these forge trials, has to stand there while the old argument turns into a public mess. Kang tries to force an immediate correction, but the tower gets hit before he can finish the order. The timing is nasty. The monsters reach the soldiers and panic takes over fast. The men scream for help while the line cracks, and even the tower side starts asking what they are supposed to do now. Kang steps in before the beasts flood the place. He draws his weapon, leaps into the swarm, and starts cutting the pressure off the soldiers one strike at a time. The soldiers keep hitting the wolves, but the pack keeps pouring in. One fighter warns that their numbers are not dropping, and the mages admit they are already tied up, just keeping the line from breaking. Kang hears the panic and forces his way into the worst part of the swarm. A wolf lunges for him, so this guy plants himself in front of it and takes the fight off the soldiers' backs. The wolf tries to tear Kang open at close range, and Kang grits through the hit long enough to answer with his weapon. The beast howls, but it does not go down clean, and Kang snaps under his breath that this thing is stubborn. More wolves gather around him, and the men behind Kang start asking why the pack is grouping up on one target. Kang steadies his weapon anyway, because if the wolves stay on him, the soldiers get room to breathe. Then the pack suddenly breaks. The wolves start whining instead of attacking, and the system exposes the trick. Fenrir's equipment forces fear onto wolf-type monsters. Kang advances while the wolves back away, and the whole fight flips in one step. The biggest wolf still tries to push through the fear, growling hard enough to make the nearby fighters freeze. The wolf drops on Kang from above, but the kid slips under it and drives his counter upward. The system applies the weight of 1,000 pounds, and the wolf gets crushed flat before it can recover. The next wolf stops cold when it sees the first one wrecked on the ground. The armored men beside Kang can barely speak, and Lord Vance, the territory lord, watches from nearby with his hand on his weapon, suddenly not so sure what he is looking at. Lord Vance erupts in silent rage, because the warning he sent before leaving never reached the tower. The armored man mutters that he clearly sent a carrier pigeon, and right on cue, the late bird lands on his shoulder. Rough timing for a delivery job. With the wolves stalled and everyone staring, Kang studies the sword in his hand instead of celebrating. He starts piecing it together. This mess may have blown up because he postponed the job quest, and now the tower is forcing his proof in the middle of a real attack. Quick catch-up, Kang is holding the wolf pack off himself, protecting the soldiers and realizing the tower is forcing his delayed trial now. Kang stands in the tower with the sword still in his hand, while Lord Vance and the armored men stare like the rules just stopped answering. Lord Vance admits this is the first time he has ever seen the tower break this badly, so Kang looks at the delayed job quest and puts the pieces together himself. The system gives Kang one order: prove his achievements. It pulls up the 2 feats nobody in the room can argue with, the 1,000-pound bow he forged, and the martial arts tournament he somehow won with it. Kang answers the trial by calling out the bow again, and the watchers lose their nerve the second he draws it. One of them blurts that this should not even be possible, but our boy fires anyway and lets the tower judge the result. The verdict lands clean. The system declares Kang qualified as a descendant of the god of blacksmiths, and the people who doubted him a minute ago can only kneel, smile, and accept that the blacksmith passed the impossible test. But the trial does not end with applause. A seated elder pushes the next command. The armored fighters below vow to prove their loyalty, and the argument turns from Kang's worth to a bigger threat moving under the tower. Inside the vision now, Vera, the world ruler, shows Kang what this job quest is tied to. For centuries, rifts tear open across the world, chaos pours through, and the last human kingdom in Erdor hangs on with almost nothing left. In Erdor, the desperate summoners open a ritual to pull in help from another world. When Kang materializes, the mages treat him like the answer to a dying prayer, and the system greets him as a summoned one entering Vera. Then Ares dumps the whole beginner guide on him at once. Classes, pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, all of it flashes by, and Kang has to process a new world while the old one is still trying to kill people. Back in the Grand Chamber, the Elder and his followers wait for Kang's answer. Kang receives a new class quest and freezes for a second, because this one is not asking him to swing a weapon. Deng asks if Kang received a new revelation, and the system names the quest directly: God's Wish, grade 5, only for the successor of the blacksmith god. The reward is Asnium, so Kang understands this is tied to the divine blacksmith path he just unlocked. Kang tells them the Ares church is in danger. Deng and the others admit strange things are happening on their side too, so Kang presses the one name the quest gave him: Asuka. Kang has never even heard the name, and that silence hits the room harder than an answer would. Then the truth finally comes out. Lord Asuka is the first blacksmith, the blacksmith god himself, and Kang's next reward comes from his divine mineral. For now, Kang only learns the part that matters. Asnium is a divine mineral made by Asuka himself, and it carries divine power. But when Kang asks how the Ares church fits in, the elder clears his throat and admits their side barely deals with the church at all. Before Kang can push further, a priestess rushes in and says the people tied to this mess have arrived. Kang reads the new quest chain and thinks he did not expect it to link this many pieces at once. The quest gives 2 orders at the same time: find the savior and become the savior. Then a guild member adds that their side has a healer, so Kang is not walking into this blind, but the game is clearly dragging him to the front. At Guild Gwangmyeong headquarters, the room measures Kang from head to toe. He stands there as the blacksmith the quest picked, while everyone else tries to make that sentence sound normal in their heads. One guild member stares at Kang and blurts out that the savior is a blacksmith. Another checks his class and level, then freezes because the supposed answer to their crisis looks way too underleveled for comfort. Kang steps forward before the doubt turns into a problem. Bella, the vice commander of the Royal Knights, steadies herself and decides they trust him for now. Her standards are doing push-ups in a burning room. Bella calls Kang the savior, and he does not run from it. Kang promises to support them however he can, then asks the question sitting under the whole quest: what exactly is the Calamity Cult? Bella explains that the Calamity Cult worships evil and has fought the Ares church for a long time. They vanished without warning, so their return now has everyone on edge. At the temple, that answer arrives fast. Kang looks up as a barrier drops over the area, and the system names the culprit: Jack, the Calamity Cult High Priest. Use the Book of Calamity to seal the temple. The system adds the real problem next. Every being with divine power inside the barrier is weakened. The barrier stretches 5 kilometers around the temple, so the nearby paladins and priests are suddenly fighting with their strength cut down. Outside the sealed temple, the cult's plan finally comes into focus. Jack's followers mean to offer the saint as a sacrifice, and the ritual already has cultists gathered beneath the altar. The ritual erupts, and the thing they are calling down answers. As the evil god takes shape over the altar, one shocked witness can only choke out that an evil god has appeared. Kang hears the sacrifice plan and moves first, because waiting only gives Jack more time. He tells Bella the same quest appeared for him too, so they need to leave right away. Kang asks Bella to guide them and checks if she can still move under the divine power debuff. Bella steadies herself, tells him not to worry, and accepts that they have no choice but to push through. On the way to the temple, the route dumps them into Wolves Sanctuary, a hunting ground meant for levels 110 to 130. Kang and Bella ride in fast, but the wolves catch their scent and rush them before they can slip through. One wolf breaks past the line and slams into Kang, and Bella shouts his name as he gets knocked off balance. She throws herself in after him, hits hard, and catches him before the pack can turn one bite into a burial. Kang looks back and sees the wolves still chasing. Running is only wasting time now, so this guy decides it is faster to cut them down and keep moving. Kang and Bella stop retreating and meet the pack head on. The wolves surround them, charge again, and then start backing away as the two of them walk forward through the opening they just carved. By the time the wolves pull back, the next person watching them is left wide-eyed. Kang has forced a path through a hunting ground that should have slowed the rescue down. The rescue path breaks open just long enough for a bigger beast to crash in, and Bella calls for Kang as it lunges straight at him. Kang plants his feet instead of running, because if this thing stalls them here, the sacrifice keeps moving without them. The beast tries to bury Kang under raw force, but our boy holds the line and draws his sword. He answers the charge head-on, forcing the creature back before it can reach Bella. Kang drives the attack through the beast's guard, guard, and the impact tears across the wrecked ground. The creature reels, the pressure finally breaks, and Kang goes down hard in the debris after stopping it. Bella stares at the ruined path and mutters, "What did I see?" Kang still checks on her first, asking if she is alright, even while he is the one standing there cut up. Kang rises with his weapon ready, but Bella spots the cut on his hand before he can hide it. She moves beside him, heals the wound, and Kang looks down as the injury vanishes. Bella steadies herself and tells Kang she will support him from the back with buffs. She puts her trust in him, and the next pack of wolves rushes into their path. Bella's buff hits Kang, and the system confirms his attack power rises by 15% for 30 minutes. Kang sees the number jump by 15,763 and realizes they can break through faster now. That is not a small push. With Bella's buff on him, Kang stops chasing every wolf one by one and cuts a path straight through the pack. The wolves try to scatter, but our boy is faster now, and every step drags him closer to the trapped Saintess. The system flashes Sword King's Sword Art Chapter 3, and Kang spends the technique before the pack can regroup. The strike breaks the wolves' charge, and the field finally goes quiet around him. Kang lets out one tired breath, and the system pays him for dropping the Ash Wolf. Level 212, special reward, hunt complete. Not exactly beginner zone behavior, but the Ash Wolf is not done making him work for it. It roars and crashes back into Kang's blade, forcing him to stop the renewed attack head on, instead of getting a clean finish. The Ash Wolf hammers the ground hard enough to force Kang offline, but this guy turns the miss into an opening. He launches back in before the beast can reset. Kang drives his blade up through the Ash Wolf's guard, and the beast answers with its claws. For one ugly second, both of them land, but Kang stays standing when the system calls the hunt finished. The loot window drops Fenrir's broken books, the master blacksmith, into Kang's hands, and Bella finally lets herself breathe. She thanks him, but Kang cuts the celebration short and tells her they still have to hurry and save the Saintess. Bella watches Kang move on without acting proud, and in her head, his calm voice and sword skill line up with the savior she has been waiting for. Then the system interrupts both of them with a special event, and Kang looks up like the game just added a problem mid-sprint. The reward hits next. Kang receives the title King of the Wolves. Then the system gives him a wolf egg, and Kang's brain stops on the important part, as he asks when wolves started laying eggs. Meanwhile, at the fortress near the ritual site, Kim Ji-hoon, Kang's old acquaintance now fighting as a paladin, climbs over the ancient wall to check the enemy side. He sees the forces packed around the castle and mutters that there are too many of them. Kim Ji-hoon stares at the numbers ahead and doubts the rescue before it even starts. If Kang and Bella are racing toward the Saintess, Ji-hoon is already seeing the wall waiting for them. Near the fortress, Ji-hoon clashes with a hooded armored knight as the fighting keeps moving around him. Then he looks across the battlefield and snaps, "What happened now?" Because the situation has changed before he can even read it. Inside the ritual chamber, Jack, the Calamity Cult High Priest, stands over Bella and starts the curse instead of fighting Kang head-on. His followers force the broken magic circle to move, even though the spell is not complete. The ritual fights back, so the cult casters grip the severed cords and drag the curse into shape by force. Jack watches the circle hold together and admits it is incomplete, but he only needs it to hit one person. Jack drives the curse down toward Bella, the royal knight trusted by the king. One cult caster hesitates and asks if it really has to be a curse, but Jack is already past mercy. Jack calls the whole thing annoying, then smiles because a clean assassination is not loud enough for him. If Bella collapses overnight, the kingdom will hear one message: Calamity has returned. Elsewhere in Vera's old history, the world is already broken by rifts and chaos. In Erdor, the last human kingdom, desperate people try to summon a hero from another world and beg the stranger to save them. The summoned player lands in Vera, and the system greets him like this is a normal tutorial, not a kingdom screaming for help. It offers classes, pets, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, and bosses, all wrapped around a war that is already underway. Back in the Grand Hall, Jack repeats the real target: curse someone the king trusts, then let the panic announce calamity for him. The cult emblem marks the ritual as theirs, and the room finally understands where the sickness is coming from. The silver-haired woman checks the glowing heart and freezes at its condition. Whatever is happening has reached the heart itself, turning the crisis from warning signs into immediate danger. Inside the royal chamber, Bella coughs blood into her hand, but still tries to wave it off as nothing serious. The men around her do not buy that for 1 second, because her body is already failing in front of them. The royal official panics and calls Bella's name again and again. He carries her toward help and shouts for anyone outside to bring every royal physician and priest in the castle. The priest checks Bella and admits he cannot even name the illness. When the royal official snaps at him for saying that, a hooded messenger reports that the vice commander is giving off the energy of the cult of calamity. The silver-haired armored figure keeps sensing the power in silence, and the red-haired official realizes the revelation leaves them with no simple rescue. He warns that both methods will be difficult, so Bella's treatment becomes a dangerous choice instead of an easy cure. Outside the royal chamber now, the cult of calamity moves while the castle is still panicking. A hooded cult fighter brings out a beast and corners the civilians under the knight's protection. Kang hears the civilians call him a knight, and the kid answers the only way he can. He thinks that even if this world is a game, he cannot walk away from people begging for help. The cult commander sees Kang and the knights blocking the path, so he declares they are trying to stop the grand cause. Then he gives the order clean and ugly: kill them all. The knights tell the civilians to run and throw themselves into the cult's path. The hooded fighter grabs one of them by the head and crushes through the defense, and the scream cuts the escape short. A civilian reaches for the fallen knight and begs him to get back up, but the knights hesitate after seeing how fast the cult fighter breaks them. That pause gives the cult cult the room it wants. The hooded fighter tears into the fortress with one huge attack and looks down at the broken defenders. He calls them fools for dropping their weapons over sympathy, and now the civilians have nowhere left to hide. The hooded cult fighter keeps pressing the broken civilians, sneering that the knights drop their weapons over a little mercy. One civilian begs for his life, but the cult fighter calls that sympathy their downfall and cuts him down anyway. Before the cult can enjoy the silence, the hooded fighter looks up and stiffens. He mutters that there should not be reinforcements here, but shadows are already dropping into the battlefield. Kang charges in on a dark wolf with a whole pack behind him, and the cult line loses its clean kill zone fast. A stunned fighter blurts out about wolves appearing out of nowhere, while a knight seizes the opening and orders everyone to suppress the black-clad enemies. R's the game system flashes Kang's reward in the middle of the rush. His King of Wolves title activates, and the pack obeys his command. The wolves tear forward at the cult fighters, and the defenders finally have something sharp between them and the massacre. Kang spots Kim Ji-hoon in the chaos and blurts his name. Because of all places, this guy is standing inside a special quest area. Kim Ji-hoon thanks him for the save, then immediately asks why Kang is even here. Then Bella steps out alive, and that changes the whole mood around Kang. She thanks him for helping her escape safely, while Kim Ji-hoon stares because Kang is still a blacksmith, and blacksmiths are not supposed to be good in a fight. Kang greets Kim Ji-hoon like this is a normal reunion, then asks about his guild. Kim Ji-hoon confirms it, and Kang answers that his guild is second to none, so the offer is not bad at all. Kang turns back to Bella for confirmation, but she treats him like the person Ares chose as a savior. Kang hears the praise and basically asks if they really need to go that far with it. After Kang's wolves break the cult's charge, Bella pulls the group into the next step of the special quest. She tells them this mission is too important to fail, and Kang answers by trusting his guild members to move with him. The group keeps walking as someone calls out each turn, keeping the quest party moving on the same route. When the white-haired man and dark-haired man turn toward each other, they pause to confirm the next direction before anyone advances alone. At the next marker, the guild message lands first. Kang's group reads that their guildmaster wants them inside the building, so they step into the dark, already regretting how much this place feels wrong. Inside the stronghold, the knights catch the group sneaking in and raise the alarm over children showing up here. The robed contact stays calm, and Kang's guild members rush to explain that they came because the guild request sounded urgent. The contact points them toward the artifacts guarding this quest, and the whole room takes the warning seriously. These things are not decoration, so the group stops treating the mission like a normal escort job. Bark, the wealthy supporter who once threw serious money behind Kang, steps forward and introduces himself again. He thanks the robed contact for helping with the quest, then moves straight into the plan before anyone can relax. Bark channels power through the artifact and brings out a large scroll to lay out the next step. The group gathers around him, and Bark asks if he should start the explanation. Bark's explanation turns to Bella, the saintess of the Church of Ares, and the others snap to attention. One of them blurts that this is real, while Kang keeps his voice calm and says handling holy artifacts is his specialty. Outside the Grand Cathedral now, hooded cult fighters move through the overgrowth with spears ready. They think they can reach the place quietly, but the defenders spot them before the ambush starts. Then the cult pushes the fight into a disaster by bringing out a dragon. The robed fighters freeze as the beast drops into the battlefield, and one soldier can only choke out "Monster." The soldiers start to break, so the commander draws his weapon and orders everyone to stand firm. He refuses to let panic spread while the dragon presses down on them. One fighter launches himself at the dragon to buy the troops time, but the dragon throws him back and keeps coming. From the ground, Kang and Bella watch the battle turn ugly, with the cathedral still in reach. Back at the cathedral, the cult commander gives the order to start the next phase, and his fighters answer without hesitation. They move on the building under his command, confident the defenders are already pinned down. Bella answers with holy power instead of panic. Her group pushes through the archway, forcing the cult to deal with the saintess before they can finish whatever ritual they started. The soldiers spot Bella entering the battlefield, and one of them blurts that the saintess is here. When they see the strange power gathered around her, even the men who were breaking a second ago stop and stare. Bella raises her blade and drives straight into the barrier blocking the way. The hit blows the cult's defense open enough for the trapped people nearby to reach her. One rescued civilian grabs Bella's hand and thanks her, but Bella scolds him for coming back after she told him to run. He starts to answer that he could not leave her behind, and then the cult's voice cuts in from above. It's too late. The cult mage spreads his arms with a book in hand, laughing like the ritual is already done. The civilians look up in horror as the spell begins to move, and the whole rescue turns into a trap. Bella apologizes to everyone for dragging them into danger and orders them to evacuate before the cult spell gets worse. But one fighter refuses to leave, telling the saintess they came prepared to fight beside her. Bella declares that Ares chose her as a savior, so she pours everything into breaking the enemy's defense. Kang watches the barrier react, and our boy steps in to add his power before the spell can close around them. Their combined force blooms over the battlefield and crashes down on the cult's barrier. For a breath, it looks like Bella and Kang have forced a way through. Then Kang calls out to Bella in alarm as another attack tears through the opening. Bella ends up facing the huge dark mass alone, with the cult's ritual still hanging over her. At the ritual site, the cult leader realizes the sacrifice is fighting back. He snaps from confusion to anger, deciding the rescue team are intruders who crawled into his ritual at the worst possible time. Inside the ritual vision, Vera, the world ruler, lays out its ruin for Kang. For centuries, rifts have poured chaos into the world, and even Erdor, the last human kingdom, is tearing at reality to find help. In that same vision, a desperate summoner greets Kang as a hero from another world, and begs him to save Vera. Kang barely has time to panic before the system welcomes him as the summoned one. The system tries to treat this like a normal game start, throwing classes, pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, and boss fights at Kang all at once. Our boy came here to forge his way out of debt, but Vera is handing him a whole dying world. Back at the ritual circle, the cult leader remembers the sacrifice going wild and finds Kang's team standing between him and his offering. He spits that rats have crawled in, so the rescuers stop arguing and brace for the fight. Kim Ji-hoon refuses the insult and rushes in first, shouting for the cult leader to stop talking nonsense. The answer hits him clean, throws him back, and leaves him crying out before anyone can cover him. Kang sees Kim Ji-hoon go down and surges forward, but the damage is already done. Bella reaches him first and asks if he can still move, while Kim Ji-hoon drops to his knees with nothing left in the tank. Lord Vance, the territory lord tied to Kang's earlier class quest, watches the rescuers gather and mocks the idea that they are saviors. He raises his weapon, pulls power into it, and sends a crushing attack down before the group can reset. The rescuers recoil under the incoming strike, and one fighter offers to wipe out the enemy bugs for good. He launches in, but the first question that breaks through the chaos is simple: are they all still alive? The tank plants himself in front of Lord Vance's attack and snaps that this is nothing for him. Lord Vance pauses, annoyed, then sneers that these people are not just rats after all. The rogue defender whips the staff through repeated slashes, throwing a magical counterattack back into Lord Vance's advance. But Lord Vance appears through a purple aura with orange eyes, showing the defense has not stopped him, and the danger is still pressing in. Lord Vance hammers the group from above, and Kang's name cuts through the blast as the others realize he is the one they have to buy time for. A spear fighter launches back at Lord Vance, while an armored defender shouts for Kang to hurry up and craft the weapon. The defenders drag the fight away from Kang, and Bella screams for everyone else to run. Lord Vance clocks the retreat and demands to know what they are plotting, because the blacksmith is now out of his reach for a few precious seconds. The spear fighter steps in as bait and tells Lord Vance they are his opponents now. Another defender snaps at him to focus, and Lord Vance finally stops chasing Kang long enough to gather power in both hands. The spear fighter tries to keep Lord Vance pinned down, but Lord Vance stays calm and accepts the fight. He decides he can kill the blockers first and chase Kang after, so the whole rescue line braces for the hit. Lord Vance strikes down, and the shield user catches it head-on before it crushes the retreat. The opening is tiny, but it is enough for the escape group to bolt toward the evacuation route, while someone yells for them to go this way. Away from Lord Vance's reach now, Kang reaches another ally and tries to force the crafting attempt through before the line breaks. The moment his hands take the material, power starts building, but his face drops as the recipe refuses to complete. At the crafting spot, Kang admits the one sentence he never thought he would say: he failed. For the first time in Ares, our boy is not missing talent or nerve. He is missing an ingredient. Back at the arena, Bella watches Russell, the knight tied to Kang's artifact work, take the hit meant to buy more time. Russell coughs blood, but he stays in front because Kang still needs a finished weapon before Lord Vance breaks through. Bella unleashes a huge magic blast that knocks the armored fighter back, but he refuses to drop. He answers with rapid sword strikes and a battle cry, turning the hit into a counterattack instead of letting the spell stop him. Lord Vance gets tired of the delay and snaps that Bella is annoying. Russell accepts the job with one short answer, then throws himself into Vance's next attack and gets blasted back for it. Bella sees Russell hit the ground and calls his name in panic. Their front line is cracking now, and Kang is still stuck on the one crafting step that refused to complete. Bella reaches Kang and asks if the weapon he is making counts as a holy relic. Kang catches on fast, pulls in that holy power, and tries the craft again with the missing piece finally in his hands. Blue energy detonates into a dark-robed figure, and another fighter gathers violet-pink magic with a fierce look. The clash has escalated around Kang's attempt, so the opening they need is becoming dangerous instead of secure. Vance's attack tears into Kang before our boy can settle his stance. Kang staggers, cries out, and the pain punches straight through him, but he still keeps hold of the weapon. Bleeding and cornered, Kang raises the finished weapon and speaks of that sun as if he is turning the whole fight with one forge. The hooded voice answers that from now on, it will shine only for the Calamity God. Outside in the moonlit courtyard, Kang arrives at last and tells the cloaked figure he is sorry for being late. He runs straight into Lord Vance's reach because the weapon is done now, and the Mad Lord finally has to face the blacksmith himself. Lord Vance draws his own weapon and raises the glowing cross-shaped artifact in his hand. He starts with one cold word, and Kang has no more room to craft, only to survive. Lord Vance tries to end Kang before the weapon can matter, so his cross artifact floods the field and forces Kang to answer right now. Kang lifts the unfinished sword over his head and commits every scrap of the forge to one last swing. The sword does not form like a normal item anymore. The system describes heaven, earth, sun, moon, mountains, and rivers pouring into the blade, while Kang holds steady and forces the craft past the point where it already failed once. Kang finishes the weapon under Lord Vance's pressure, and the system finally gives him the words he needed to hear. A legendary grade artifact has been completed. Kang lowers the completed sword and faces Lord Vance with the 4-tiger sword in hand. The blacksmith who was supposed to be out of options now has a legendary weapon made for driving away mountain-like evil. As the sword settles into Kang's hand, Vera's broken world pushes back into view. For centuries, rifts have been tearing the realm apart, and Erdor, the last human kingdom, is still begging for a hero from another world. Back inside Vera's summoning system, Kang gets welcomed as the summoned one. The game throws him the usual class menu, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, and boss fights, all while the world outside is already burning for real. The system snaps back to to the present and repeats the result Kang fought for. The 4-tiger sword is complete, and our boy grips it like the Forge just handed him an answer instead of another bill. The 4-tiger sword calls out its tiger spirit, and Lord Vance's side finally hesitates. The weapon is not just sharp, it carries the holy power Kang needed when his first craft came up short. Lord Vance tries to force the Calamity God's return before Kang can stop him. He declares he will return soon, and the ritual count drops to 0. Jack, the Calamity Cult High Priest, rises on the cult's power, but the 4-tiger sword answers with white tiger energy and heavy holy force. The system names the effect plainly, that holy power weakens Jack. Kang holds his ground as the 4-tiger sword keeps pouring out holy power. Jack is still standing, but the cult's ritual no longer belongs only to him. The holy assault catches Jack hard. A masked man strains under the impact and loses control of the clash. Kang appears in full armor with the glowing sword, turning the broken ritual into a direct fight Jack now has to endure. In that vision, the summoned warrior raises the sacred sword and prays for the people and the nation to live in peace. Soldiers gather around the miracle and cry out for the saint, treating the blade like salvation, not just a weapon. Back in the courtyard, the game rewards Kang hard for surviving the ritual. The system dumps a huge amount of experience on him, then stacks 4 level ups in a row. 4 level ups is a very clean apology. Kang checks the 4-tiger sword and remembers the catch. Since he forged it in an emergency, the sword is supposed to disappear soon, and that stings because it just saved everyone from Jack. Bella notices Kang staring at the artifact and calls to him uneasy. Kang starts comparing this craft to his normal work, searching for the one thing that changed this time. Kang thinks through the forge step by step, then lands on the strange part, holy power. He wonders if that power is the reason the emergency forged sword still holds together. The system answers him. The 4-tiger sword is only staying alive because holy power is feeding it, and it needs even more to keep existing. Kang pours more holy power into the sword and drives it back into the fight before Jack can recover. The blade accepts the power, and Kang forces the final strike through. Then the system turns cold on him. Jack's death triggers a Calamity Cult curse, and Kang realizes the cult left one last trap inside the kill. The curse does not stay small. It reaches for the entire continent, and Kang takes the first hit as pain tears through him. The system names the target plainly. The curse will forever track the one who killed Jack. Kang still forces the last strike through, even with the curse locking onto him. The warning gets worse. If nobody removes the curse, it spreads across the continent and keeps growing stronger, so Kang's victory leaves a new disaster moving under everyone's feet. Bella sees Kang doubled over and rushes him for an answer, asking why he suddenly looks so bad. Kang can barely get sound out, and the room finally catches up to the damage. Then the diagnosis lands. The affliction on Kang is not exhaustion from the forge or backlash from the sword. It is a curse. Kang is still on the floor, and the curse keeps crawling through his body. Bella drops beside him and pours healing into him before the curse can spread any farther. While Bella fights to keep Kang conscious, the others hold the room against the remaining chaos. Kang only manages a rough sound, and his body goes rigid as the curse reaches its worst point. Then Bella's blessing finally bites down. The system announces the curse of death is removed, and Kang gets to keep breathing after a win that came very close to collecting payment. With Jack gone and the curse stopped, Vera regains strength and thanks everyone who helped. Kang's group stands there with the system still throwing rewards at them, because saving a church comes with paperwork too. Outside the church, the survivors see the result for themselves. The Holy Sword has answered, Lord Vance's side has a path forward, and the nightmare around the Calamity Church finally starts to loosen. Back in the real-world office, Ares, the game system, staff stare at the large-scale quest data in disbelief. One staffer thanks the team leader for backing the call, and the team leader tells him to stay strong, but nobody in that room looks relaxed. Inside Ares again, Vera's power gathers around the church as the system settles the reward. The staff watching from outside the game admits Kang saved the Church of Ares, so he deserves what comes next. In the office, one staffer asks if they are not more curious about how things will go over there. The focus shifts to Belia when the pale-haired woman challenges her claim, turning Belia's answer into the next thing everyone needs to hear. Bella hesitates when the Saintess asks if the child of the Saintess class is bound to the Ares Church. Bella understands the cost right away. If Kang accepts that path, he may have to give up the dreams he came into Ares to chase. Elsewhere in Ares, Kang sits alone near the window, trying to sort out what the church reward actually demands from him. Then the memory of battle hits again, and the young master moves before fear can pin him down. Back at the church room, Kang grabs the door handle and calls for Bella to come in. She enters with bread and soup, worried enough to scold him for moving around when he just escaped a death curse. Kang faces Bella across the room, and the conversation turns to the Ares Church. She shows him a glowing record kept by the church, making clear this reward is tied to official church authority, not a casual favor. The process snaps into a reversion. The Sangeum is no longer just Kang's emergency-made weapon, and the system opens a new consecration quest with a reward it refuses to reveal. In the church room, Kang tries to finish his question about the Ares Church, but Bella's face gives her away first. She says she is fine, yet our boy can tell she is holding back something bigger than polite worry. Kang turns on the feeling and asks the real question. If Bella's class is the child of the Saintess, and that class belongs to the Ares Church, leaving the church should cost her everything. Bella hesitates, because that question drags her straight back to the choice she had to make. In Bella's memory, the Saintess asks if walking her own path really means giving up every gift the church gave her. In that same memory, Bella stands alone with the answer pressing down on her. Then the Saintess takes her hands and calls her by name, telling Bella she may choose what she wants and does not have to bury her dream. The Saintess stops before letting Bella go, because one last thing still scares her. She asks what Bella saw, and Bella admits her vision was tied to Kang, the man who brought the Holy Sword. The Saintess accepts that answer and releases her with one simple order: Bella may go. That permission sends Bella back to Kang with the church matters settled in her heart, even if Kang is still catching up. Back in the church room, Kang reaches for the ornate door, thinking the Calamity Church and Guild problems are already done. Then he pauses because the Sanjum's new holy relic quest is still staring him in the face. Tiny detail, huge headache. Inside the Ares church, the Saintess tells Kang not to worry because her prayers are already finished. Then she calls him savior and places the saint's blessing on him before he can even ask for details. Kang stiffens as the blessing settles into him, and the system confirms he gains 250 divine power. It also tells him he can gain more whenever he performs saintly deeds, so the church has just tied rewards to his actions inside Ares. The Saintess brings up what happened while Kang was unconscious. She says she had a chance to use holy power, and Kang finally understands why the Sanjum changed in the middle of all that chaos. Quick catch up, Kang has Bella back and the church behind him, but he must prove himself through saintly deeds to strengthen the holy sword. The Saintess shows him the Sengo, and the system gives the answer straight. The weapon has been reborn as a holy relic. Kang came in thinking the church business was wrapped up, and now his sword has a second career. A special quest opens, asking Kang to consecrate Sanjum to the Ares church. The reward is unknown, and he can refuse with no penalty, so our boy immediately hesitates, instead of grabbing the shiny church offer. Kang thinks it through and realizes the signature sword is not gone for good. If he can reuse it through reforging or emergency crafting, then letting this version become a sacred relic stops feeling like a loss. Kang accepts, and the Saintess completes the sacred relic before handing it over as his reward. The weapon lands in Kang's hands, and for once, this guy looks more moved than confused. Then Kang finally studies the mineral he was too rushed to inspect earlier. The closer he looks, the more serious he gets, because the material is far better than he expected. In the Church of Ares, Kang's bond with Saint Arya hits its limit, so the Saintess offers him one request within her authority. Kang still has that rare mineral in hand, and the holy mark gathers around him as he realizes he can cash the favor in right now. Kang cuts straight to it and asks the Saintess about the favor. Then our boy drops to one knee so fast it almost looks rehearsed, and asks her to grant it immediately. At the royal palace, Lord Vance sits over a tense court as Marquis Rubruk arrives in a rush. Lord Vance snaps at him for barging in without proper manners, and the knights tighten around the throne. Marquis Rubruk greets the throne, but Lord Vance wants the reason first. The rumor has already reached the palace. The fallen heir's condition comes from a curse. In the Grand Hall, Marquis Rubruk argues that even if the curse has weakened, it still cannot be fully cured without a Saintess's prayer. So for the kingdom's stability, he pushes for a new pillar to replace the fallen heir. Lord Vance answers with the one name he has been waiting on. Kang, his close friend, is returning from the Church of Ares. A courtier doubts him at once, saying Kang is merely a blacksmith, and Lord Vance warns him not to expect too much. Then Kang walks into the throne room, and every guard and courtier turns toward him. The room barely gets a second to breathe before the presence around him hits like a royal alarm bell. Weapons come out as the Mad Knights move to protect the court, but the pressure keeps spreading through the hall. One noble gasps that he can't breathe, then realizes the source must be the Calamity cult. Lord Vance rises against the intruder's presence and shouts at the court to face it. He demands how a member of the Calamity cult dares enter the palace, and now every eye locks on Kang. Lord Vance calls Kang by name the second he reaches the throne, and the whole court locks onto him. Kang steps forward calm, but the pressure around this guy hits first, so the guards treat his arrival like an attack. The watching nobles realize the problem is Kang's coat, not Kang himself. He remembers the item falling from Jack after the Calamity cult's high priest died, and the system names it the Coat of Calamity, a unique armor that releases Calamity's majesty the moment he wears it. With the knights ready to cut him down, Kang tries to speak before the court panics harder. He apologizes for bringing it up the second he arrives, then asks the ugly question, were this many people already plotting against them? Kang spots the hidden enemies before they move, so the room snaps from fear of him to fear around him. One hooded infiltrator starts a count, and the planted attackers realize the blacksmith has blown their cover in front of the throne. The Calamity cult agents panic as their own trick triggers from Kang's coat. Calamity's command freezes everything nearby for 3 seconds, and Kang stiffens in place, thinking his body just stopped listening. Kang shouts that he can't move, and the masked knights rush him while the command still has him pinned. He only gets his arms up before their lances crash into his guard, meaning the ambush earns a free strike during those 3 helpless seconds. The palace stairs are wrecked, the attackers are down, and the court finally sees Kang standing in the middle of the damage instead of hiding behind anyone. Another fighter moves in, testing whether the blacksmith can really stand his ground after that forced opening. Kang keeps it simple and says he came because his benefactor asked, so of course he answered. The court starts whispering over who he really is, and then Saint Arya steps into the hall, the saint whose prayer can lift Marquis Rubruk's curse. In Vera's old history, the rifts open and undead pour into every corner of the world. Centuries of war leave Vera broken, and Apodops stands as the last human kingdom still breathing. Inside Epidop, a summoning ritual finally answers the kingdom's prayer. Saint Arya calls Kang a hero from another world and begs him to save Vera, while Kang lands in a place that greets him like a game system. The system dumps the rules on Kang fast. Pick a class, tame a beast, collect loot, upgrade gear, and survive dungeons or raids. Our boy came to Ares to forge and earn money, but Vera is already treating him like it's emergency plan. Back in the palace hall, Saint Arya's appearance hits the court hard. The nobles expected a miracle worker for Marquis Rubruk's curse, but Saint Arya freezes when Kang is standing there too. Elsewhere in the palace, a noble official writes with a smile as the court tries to turn Kang's outsider status into a trap. The challenge is simple: make the commoner they mocked handle the assassins first, then judge him by the mess left behind. On the red carpeted steps, Kang reads the assassination attempt for what it is and calls it clumsy. One furious noble wants a head cut off and sent to Priam, but the warning lands fast. If they give Priam an excuse, the kingdom gets dragged into a bigger fight. Saint Arya catches the opening instead. Since Kang saved the kingdom's greatest noble, Saint Arya turns to the court and presses them to admit they owe him gratitude. Then Saint Arya smiles and pushes the blade in deeper, asking the nobles to grant Kang the title of baronet for his achievement. The shocked official lowers his head because the trap just changed hands. Saint Arya keeps going before anyone can wriggle out. Kang is assigned to manage the territory of Priam, so the commoner they tried to corner leaves the court with land, title, and a job nobody can quietly erase. Outside the palace now, banners rise in the mountain air as the new assignment starts moving through the kingdom. Officials meet, messengers turn, and Kang's name travels ahead of him into Prahem. Back indoors, Bella, the vice commander of the Royal Knights, lies unconscious while a voice pleads for him to wake. Bella finally stirs and asks who is there, still too dazed to know what happened after the court exploded into politics. Bella, the vice commander of the Royal Knights, wakes enough to recognize Kang beside her. He tries to get up too, but the attendants stop him before his body gives out again. Bella looks at Kang like she has been holding one question in her chest the whole time. She asks why he came, and our boy has to stand there with that answer hanging between them. Bella gathers herself, still weak, and turns the conversation back to Barad, the legendary swordmaster. She kneels and asks Kang to protect his majesty in her place because she can no longer do it herself. Kang refuses, and Bella snaps awake from grief into anger. She asks if his loyalty is really that light, then throws Barad's name at him and demands he think about how the king feels. The anger breaks first. Bella clings to him and admits the truth she could not say as a knight. She does not want to die. Kang holds on instead of arguing, and Bella looks at him like she is seeing something she did not expect. She takes his hand and blesses him, hoping he will bloom too under the god Ares. The blessing answers too loudly. Light swallows them both, Bella freezes in shock, and Lord Vance steps out of it before anyone can pretend this is normal. At the Church of Ares, officials prepare to send out the Child of the Saints, but the room is already full of doubt. Carcel, the 16th Pope of the Church of Ares, agrees to check the matter only because the saint's dignity and the Creator's visit leave him no clean way to refuse. Carcel steels himself to reject the claim, ready to call it foolish even if it came from the saint. Then the knight presents the sword, and Carcel's whole argument gets hit first. Carcel examines the sword and stops cold. He lifts it overhead in pure joy, while the knight and everyone nearby stare at him with no idea how the scolding turned into a celebration. Carcel stops treating the sword like an insult, and decides its creator deserves a proper reward through the temple. He waves the weapon in excitement, calls for the temple treasurer, and promises the maker will be paid properly. Carcel's sudden joy leaves the room checking with each other, because the foreign blacksmith they were ready to doubt just made a sword the Pope himself wants to protect. Carcel looks toward the light ahead and keeps the weapon close, already thinking beyond one reward. Elsewhere in the ornate chamber, word of Kang's work keeps moving. A noble reads the report, grips the sword, and here's the part that sticks hardest. The new weapon for Barad came from a foreign blacksmith nobody had ranked properly. In the Goyard Kingdom court, Barad stands with the new sword and calls Kang's achievement into law. A kneeling official accepts the grace on Kang's behalf, and Kang is raised as a sub-baron of the Goyard Kingdom. The title comes with command rights, so Kang can now lead soldiers instead of only making gear for them. The system adds one more nasty little carrot. With enough achievements, he could be revered as the next sovereign of Ares. That message has zero chill. Back with Bella, the royal knight Kang saved finally understands what he did for her and Barad. She meets him with real gratitude and says she truly thanks him, while the blessing inside her is described as a second son in her heart. Back in the real world, the hospital pulls Kang out of royal titles and straight into bills again. A medic checks the patient, a hooded figure gives the cautious answer, and all anyone can do is hope the treatment holds. Kang sits alone and counts the Pope's payment against the treatment costs. It covers enough to matter, so our boy finally gets a little room to breathe before the next bill finds him. With that money buying time, Kang turns back to the one thing he can still control: forging. He raises his injured hand, faces the sky, and decides he has to make the left one useful too. Kang tests the left hand at the forge and admits he needs to get used to working with it. Then he sits at the bench and keeps practicing, because stopping now sends him right back to debt and helpless waiting. As Kang works, his mind jumps back to the raid where everything nearly collapsed. He remembers crouching among fallen enemies, and that old danger starts lining up with a strange power still waiting to hatch. Back at the forge, Kang tests the repaired grip and quietly approves when the left hand feels useful. Our boy leans in harder, because every clean strike buys his father more time outside that hospital bill nightmare. Kang raises his hand and triggers reset scan, forcing the divine repair skill to read the item properly. The custom system repair begins and power runs through his hand as the coat starts accepting his blacksmith blessing. The coat responds to Kang's will to protect his allies, so the divine blacksmith power strengthens it instead of just fixing it. He grips the finished piece and seals the upgrade with that quiet look he gets when the hammer finally listens. With the coat ready, Kang decides to stop guessing and actually test the new power. He smiles and sends it out, telling the gear to prove what it can do. Outside in daylight, Kang faces forward and activates Sovereign's command. The skill answers too well, pulling him into the air while the system explains it. Can control objects for a short time with a 20-minute cooldown. Kang's face drops the second he realizes he is also part of the test. This guy goes from Grand Commander to hallway projectile in one breath, and the landing does not ask permission. The focus shifts from the failed test to a close exchange between the dark-coated man and the blonde woman. He grips her arm and smiles as they talk, turning the next lead into a personal confrontation instead of another gear demonstration. The command path gives Kang two blunt orders: recruit soldiers first, then secure territory and become a lord. For a blacksmith trying to pay medical bills, Ares is now handing him a military career on top of the forge work. Kang studies the requirement instead of celebrating too fast, because the system is already raising the price of the next step. When the record achievement hits, the kid lights up for half a second before the quest window drops the real condition. A new kingdom quest opens, Commander of the Subjugation Force, Grade A, with Sub-Baron rank required. Kang stares at it, because the game is no longer asking him to craft better gear, it is asking him to climb into power. Before Kang can unpack the new commander quest, another system reward pops up and he squints at it. He asks what these achievements even are, and his companion has no answer, because the reward in his hands is already pulling their attention away. The companion explains that pet eggs usually follow some hidden rule, then tries to guess something cute will hatch. The egg twitches before anyone gets comfortable, and Kang gets the warning he actually needs. The thing is cracking open right now. The hatch drags Kang straight into Vera, the ruined realm that has suffered for centuries under rifts and chaos. In Erdor, the last human kingdom, desperate mages tear open a summon and beg the hero from another world to save them. Ars immediately buries Kang under the New World rules. He sees the class choices, the pet system, the stats, the dungeons, the guild raids, and the boss encounters, all while our boy is still trying to understand why a pet egg came with a whole apocalypse manual. Back at the hatching screen, a bespectacled observer watches the process and wonders if Kang can really hatch the divine wolf beast. The egg answers for him, and the divine wolf beast bursts into existence beside Kang. Elsewhere in Erdor, the Pinkstone Fortress city is already living under siege. Ogres press the walls every day, wounded soldiers pile up inside, and the commander barks for ammunition to be moved left before the next push hits. On the fortress rampart, the officers keep the defense moving while nobles watch the city from above, but the fight has already left scars below, where armored soldiers stand in a burned courtyard and a shadowed fighter confronts a tattooed man face to face. In that burned courtyard, a bearded noble tests the report with a sharp question, and the armored man answers with full confidence. He tells the others to remember his words, because their retreat is only temporary. The younger fighter obeys the command and calls him father, making Luke's loyalty and chain of command clear. Then Luke, the son of Marquis Lukeberg, steps forward as the first unit's leader, and here's the issue now drawing attention: a foreign blacksmith. At the fortified camp, Luke studies the report on the foreign blacksmith while the soldiers rush ammunition through the line. Then one shell goes wrong, a knight screams, and the whole camp drops into panic before anyone can even call the attack. The blast should wipe out the nearby knights, but Kang cuts into the chaos and stops the worst of it. When the dust clears, the soldiers realize they are still alive, and one of them thanks him before asking who he is. Kang checks the shaken knights first, then gives the answer they actually need. He says he came to meet the commander, so the camp now has to deal with the blacksmith Barad personally sent into the war zone. Inside the command post, Luke reads Barad's written order and hates every line of it. An officer pushes back at the idea of obeying a foreign blacksmith, but Barad's name shuts the argument down, so Luke gives the order to let Kang move. Luke lays out what Gale Squad really is: a unit built to assassinate or protect important figures, not babysit strangers. He decides to meet Barad himself, because if Kang is taking command, Luke wants the king's answers straight from the source. In the forest, the army splits its command before the next hunt. Luke takes the first unit, Kang takes the second, and the soldiers march with the uneasy knowledge that a blacksmith now leads one side of the operation. Then Kang gets the quest window: Hunt the Ogre Lord, rank A, with his baronet title on the line. The kid sees the failure penalty and nearly chokes on it, because losing here means losing the rank he just clawed up to. On the forest road, Barad leaves for kingdom business and hands the details to Kang, his aide assigned to explain the mission. Kang stays behind with the troops, so Kang has no room to dodge the job now. Bella pushes the march forward and calls for everyone to move out. The target is simple enough on paper. The giant king is sleeping in this location. So much for simple. The ground caves under one massive step, and the front line finally sees what they walked into. A knight shouts that it is an ogre, but the creature's size makes the soldiers freeze, because this thing is far beyond a normal hunt. Luke sees the oversized threat hit the front line and orders every unit to fall back. The system names it as a Cyclops, and the soldiers panic because this thing is already here before the giant king even wakes. The Cyclops charges the retreating line and starts smashing through the soldiers before they can regroup. The front line breaks, and one knight can only scream as the retreat turns into a mess. Kang steps into the clearing because waiting means the troops get crushed. Our boy forces the Cyclops to look at him, then drives it back long enough to pull its attention off the knights. Kang tells the others he will create an opening and throws himself in first. He hammers the Cyclops with everything his blacksmith skills can push into a fight, but the beast eats the hit and stays up. The Cyclops answers with one brutal swing and knocks Kang off his feet. When it sees a blacksmith still standing after that, it stares at him and mutters, "A blacksmith? Fair question. Terrible timing." Kang draws the Cyclops after him, so the knights finally get room to move. The beast chases in pain, and the squad uses that opening to bury it in attacks until it starts bleeding out. With Kang buying time, the swordsmen finish the wounded Cyclops before it reaches the broken line again. The soldiers check each other in disbelief because the Cyclops is down and nobody dies. Nearby in the forest, Luke stands by the portal and watches the field go quiet. A red-haired soldier turns back in confusion, but Luke only says the next danger is coming soon. The system cuts through the relief with an emergency quest. The target changes and the sleeping giant king begins to wake under the forest. Kang realizes the final boss is waking up right after they barely survive the Cyclops. The moss-covered giant king rises, and the whole battlefield has to face the real raid now. In the forest clearing, the armored line barely gets moving before two huge knights block Kang's path. Then Ares drops the real problem on him. The giant king is waking, and every monster now comes back twice as fast. Ogres pour into the field, and a level 287 Cyclops steps in with them. One soldier sees the swarm closing around Kang and chokes out that ogres are everywhere, so the defenders start breaking before the fight even reaches them. The soldiers look to Kang as Sir Kang, but our boy reads the numbers fast and knows the line will vanish at this pace. Desperate to pull the monsters away from the troops, he offers to act as bait, but the commander cuts him off with one hard answer: "I refuse." The commander faces Kang and demands to know if everyone is supposed to die here together. Kang answers with action instead, draws his blade, and forces divine emergency crafting away because he will not let the soldiers get buried under the swarm. The forge skill finishes in his hands, and Kang pulls out the Spirit Light Golden Turtle divine crossbow. He checks the weapon and sees the wild part fast. One bolt from this thing can hold back 1,000 enemies. Kang fires once, and the monster charge gets blown apart before it reaches the shield line. That crossbow does not ask twice. With the field scattered, Kang finally stops trying to fight alone. He admits he has never really led anyone before, but when it comes to reading people, this guy trusts himself more than any battle manual. So Kang turns that read into orders, and the soldiers lock into formation with lances and shields. The commander takes over the front, shouting for the spearmen to crouch low behind the shield unit. But the next attacker crashes into them hard enough to make the line groan. Kang stands still behind the formation, watching the defense hold for one more breath. The monsters are still coming, and the commander's choice has put real bodies between Kang and the swarm. Kang rushes the masked attacker before the line breaks, but the attacker pushes back harder and forces the shield knight to take the hit. Our boy feels the opening in his new power and grabs it before the soldiers get crushed. The system gives Kang 12 seconds to control every object within 80 meters, but he catches the catch right away. If he aims straight at the ogres, the level gap weakens the effect, so this guy turns the battlefield itself into the weapon. An armored enemy hoists a huge metal sword overhead, then blurts in confusion as it rises higher than expected. When he crashes into the shield unit, the soldiers brace and absorb the hit, keeping the front line from breaking immediately. Kang tells the commander, "I'll take care of them." He pauses for one clean breath, then drops the attackers in front of the formation, and the soldiers finally get room to breathe. Kang turns back and checks whether the shield unit is still alive, asking if everyone is in one piece. The Mad Lord addresses him as Sir Hyun-soo, and their face-off shows the soldiers made it through the rush. But Kang now has a new confrontation in front of him. But the fight is not done, so Kang drives forward again and cuts off the next threat before it reaches the soldiers. One soldier jerks back in shock and tries to challenge him, but Kang is already past the question. A moment earlier on the front line, the commander watches every soldier like each life belongs on his own shoulders. When the armored warrior breaks through, the commander throws himself into the attack, and the impact tears through his defense. Back in the present, the commander breaks under the weight of the fallen men and chokes out that their deaths are on him. Kang stands before the giant armored form, takes that blame onto himself, and sinks into the thought that he deserves to die. Kang takes the armored warrior's full strike head on, and the forest behind him erupts from the hit. When the blast clears, this guy is still there, battered but standing in the wreckage. A few hours earlier, inside Vera, the realm Kang was dragged into, the truth is already ugly. The rifts have been spilling chaos for centuries, and the last human kingdom is praying before the whole place tears open. At the summoning site, Kang lands in front of the priestess and her people, and they cling to him as the hero from another world. Kang does not get a warm welcome from Ares either, just a system message telling him he has entered Vera. The system shoves the rules at Kang fast. Pick a class, tame beasts, track stats, collect gear, clear dungeons, join guild raids, and fight bosses for rare loot. Our boy barely has time to breathe before Ares tells him his adventure starts now. Back on the battlefield now, Kang faces the towering armored warrior and mutters that this disaster is his fault. The warrior punishes that hesitation instantly, driving a heavy blow into him, while Kang sinks deeper and thinks he deserves to die. Then a killing strike drops toward the broken front line, but it never reaches the injured commander. The armored warrior growls in confusion as the commander wakes in someone's arms and asks who saved him. The commander looks at the soldiers still breathing and breaks all over again, because in his head they should already be dead. Kang steps into his view, and the commander's shock comes out in one broken sound. You? The armored warrior keeps attacking, but Kang forces himself back onto his feet. The warrior admits this is now his problem to handle, and Kang meets him straight on instead of staying buried under the blame. The next hit drives into Kang hard, but he does not fold. He locks onto the armored warrior and promises to hold him accountable unstoppable after the battle is over. A winged enemy drops toward Kang from above, adding a second threat while the armored knight is still on him. Kang meets the knight with a golden clash, but a purple edge strike comes hammering down, forcing him to answer danger from both directions. The armored warrior advances again, so Kang reaches for the one answer he has not used yet. Then his mind snaps back to that earlier thought. If ordinary weapons cannot stop this, he needs the club born from a legend. The giant king sees Kang pull attacks back and snaps that they need more pressure, not less. Kang ignores the panic, answers with a clean counter, and buys himself one breath to forge instead of swing. Kang realizes the fight will not wait for a normal craft, so he triggers Divine Emergency Craft. In the middle of the battlefield, our boy hammers divine power into a crude club and grips it like it is the only tool left. The giant king stares at the new weapon and demands to know what Kang can do with just a club. He immediately punishes that opening with a downward smash that blows Kang back, while the fight shifts into a legend about a man who once became a god. As Kang drags himself through the broken ground, the old legend rises in his head. There was once a man who became a god, and Kang holds on because that man fought giants with the same ugly answer. The system shows the giant king's HP has finally dropped below 90%, so the club is working. Kang turns back toward the destruction, and the legend continues, starting with a child born between a human mother and a supreme god. The story says that child was nearly killed by his father's wife the moment he was born, but the divine infant survives, grows, and becomes the hero who can beat giants with a single club. The system names Kang's skill as Power of Hercules, an active skill that drains his stats into the club. Kang puts everything into it, and the power keeps stacking while his own body starts paying the price. With every stat poured into one strike, Kang brings the club down on the giant king. The hit caves through the giant king's guard, and for the first time the giant's anger turns into pain. The giant king screams KWAA as the blow throws him backward and cracks his armor. He lands growling, still alive, but now he knows the blacksmith's club can hurt him. Inside Vera's battle now, Kang has one job: stay alive long enough for this impossible club to become money for his father's treatment. The giant king answers the first hit by triggering his own counter, and Kang moves in to punish him. Then the system slams Kang with fear, freezes him for 3 seconds, and our boy cannot move. The giant king does not waste the opening. He drives a heavy blow straight into Kang, and the system drops Kang's health under 60%. Kang coughs hard, but he still forces his body back into the fight. Kang swings back because stopping now gets him logged out before he can finish the job. The counter lands, but the cost hits faster than the damage does. His health crashes under 10%, then falls past 0 as Kang thinks he is about to be kicked out. Right before the logout takes him, Kang burns his hidden answer. Asnium drags his health back to a tiny 0.01%, just enough for him to stand. Kang catches the name in his head and pushes the skill again. Kang raises the club with his bandaged arms, but the giant king is still too fast for his size. The system shows Kang's level at 291, and even that does not spare him from the next hit. He gets blasted backwards, snarling, "Damn it!" Kang steadies himself and reads the giant king properly now. That huge body should be slow, but the giant king closes distance like a raid boss built to delete careless players. Kang roars back and meets him with a wrapped club. Their weapons hammer into each other, and Kang finally notices what the giant king is using. He realizes the enemy has Hercules' club too, so brute force alone will not end this. The giant king keeps pressing, and Kang stays on defense. Kang's mind catches on the problem in front of him. If even a god needed another way, can one single weapon really decide this fight? He repeats the thought. One weapon? Then Kang pours power through the club, and the next strike hits the armored giant king clean. Inside Vera's old summons record, the world is already falling apart. Rifts have torn open for centuries, and Erdor, the last human kingdom, is down to one ugly option: call a hero from another world. In the castle hall, the summoned hero arrives, and the woman waiting there begs him to save their world. Ares locks him into Vera with a welcome message, but then throws the whole hero setup at him. Classes, pets, stats, loot, dungeons, guilds, raids, bosses, a full disaster menu. Back in the giant king fight, Kang stops treating this like a strength contest. The sword he forged for Barad, the legendary swordmaster, has the kind of skills a normal player would drool over. But this guy needs more than one answer now. Kang brings out Gungnir, the unique spear with brutal attack power and perfect durability. Our boy has no room for a clean duel, so he starts stacking every weapon advantage he owns. Kang cuts into the giant king's armor with Barad's custom sword, and the boss finally feels it. The giant king roars back, hurt and confused. It's because the blacksmith is not fighting like a blacksmith anymore. Kang triggers Frost Flower and rushes in before the giant king can recover. The skill bites into the boss, forcing him onto defense for the first time in the exchange. The giant king keeps swinging through the damage, so Kang presses close and punishes every opening. Then Kang checks his own condition and thinks even the shockwave is deadly. That low HP turns every hit into a death threat, so Kang stops trading blows and starts fighting for one clean finish. The giant king slams down hard enough to scatter the ground, but Kang holds the line. The giant king tries to crush him with raw force, and Kang answers with a weapon made for ending monsters like this. He drives in and shouts, "Gungnir." Gungnir lands while the giant king is airborne, and the boss's helmet cracks under the hit. Kang stands over the finished raid, and Ares confirms the kill. He has defeated the giant king and obtained the giant king's blood. Then the system keeps going, naming Kang and every member of the Gale Squad in the result window. Kang's win does not just clear the boss fight, it reaches the allies who survived long enough to see it end. Kang is still standing after Gungnir ends the giant king, but he is breathing like the spear took half of him with it. Luke, the noble commander, commander hears his name from the survivors, opens his eyes, and gives them only silence because everyone is still checking who made it through. The knights want to rush in, but one soldier tells them to check the situation first. Then the answer reaches the line, Kang and Luke are safe, and the Giant King is down. The report lands hard on the survivors, and the man in the brown jacket stands there troubled instead of celebrating. The others gather close and hold him because even with Kang and Luke safe, the group still has to steady itself after the fight. Kang sees his father and calls out, one word carrying everything he fought through, father. His father reaches out and places a hand on Kang's head, and our boy finally stops holding himself together by force. Kang's father thanks him, simple and quiet. Kang falls into the embrace, and for once the win is not about items, rankings, or money, but the man he is trying to keep alive. The soldiers try to turn the relief into celebration right away. One voice calls for a huge reward, then another announces a victory banquet for that very night. A man in a dark jacket stops the banquet talk cold, asking what they mean by throwing a party. As he challenges the celebration, energy bursts from an armored figure's hands, turning the victory mood into alarm. From that victory, Vera pulls Kang into the old story of its ruin. For centuries, rifts have torn open across the world, dragons and dragons have poured through, and no corner has escaped the chaos. In Erdor, the last human kingdom, mages gamble everything on a summoning ritual. They are not looking for a soldier from their own world anymore, so they drag in a hero from another one. Kang lands in that summoning and immediately panics as Ares greets him as the summoned one. The system tells him he has entered Vera, while this guy is still trying to understand why strangers are begging him to save a world. Ars shoves the tutorial in front of him before Kang can catch up. It lays out the usual classes, warriors, mages, clerics, and hunters, all built for clean roles that are not blacksmithing. The tutorial keeps going with pets, stats, loot, and legendary gear, then it explains dungeons, guild raids, boss encounters, and the exact kind of fights Kang keeps getting dragged into. A few hours earlier, inside an ornate room, Kang faces the Lukeberg household after the Giant King battle. The Marquis speaks as a father first, weighing Kang's choices through family instead of politics. The Marquis understands why Kang put mourning before a victory feast, because he says he would think the same way for his own family. Then he offers House Lukeberg's full support, and Kang nearly stalls when Ares confirms Marquis Lukeberg is backing him. Kang takes the Marquis's hand and thanks him, already treating the support like a debt he has to honor. The Marquis answers by promising to assign a knight to Kang, so the blacksmith who just survived a king now gets a protector of his own. Inside the Lukeberg hall, the Marquis calls the promised knight in. Luke steps forward, and the Marquis explains that Luke came personally to beg for the post. Luke faces Kang and says Kang choosing mourning over a victory feast opened his eyes. Ares marks it clearly too. Luke, one of the kingdom's 5 talents, now pledges loyalty to Kang. Outside the hall now, Kang gets called before the gathered soldiers. Their commander tells him the troops have something to say, and the whole line drops to ask for one thing. They want to become his sword. Kang stands there with the whole unit offering itself to him, but this guy does not grab power just because it is handed over. He kneels back to them and apologizes, saying he still does not have the right or the ability to take them all with him. Elsewhere in an office, the refusal lands with shock. An official lays out the harder truth. Blacksmithing needs precision and raw strength, so Kang's damaged real-world hands still make every step costly. Over the city that night, Kang answers the support with a quiet thank you. Every ally helps him stay in Ares longer, and every day in Ares is another chance to forge money for his father's treatment. On the battlefield, Pram wins its match and raises the victory banner. In the noble seats, one ruler wonders if he forced the result by putting his own descendant in the first match. A red-haired nobleman answers that Barad is busy elsewhere. He adds that Barad's fight with the noble faction has split Goyard's strength, so Pram sees an opening. Then Duke Ruwad of Pram arrives with an armored escort. The host claims he told the Duke not to come if he was busy, but the red-haired nobleman calls that loyalty admirable. The white-haired nobleman starts to relax, until another announcement cuts through the hall. Kang and Luke have arrived, and the nobles who thought the list was closed now have to face the blacksmith backed by Lukeberg. Kang stands with his hammer amid burning buildings, so the conflict is no longer just noble politics in a hall. The destruction has reached him directly, and whatever choice he makes now happens in the middle of